And
Well, we do shoot down things, but like when you see fabricated video, like that one with World Trade Center 7,
Mhm.
and it's presented as fact this many years out, it's kind of just very sad. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Laurie, you were enjoying
Uh,
it, huh?
yeah, I think when I looked into this whole thing a long time ago, that's actually the video that I saw where you see those flashes. And then I looked into a video that debunked that and showed how it's actually just added on those
Exactly.
those flashes. So that's basically my story of looking into it and finding out, okay, this other side is lying. Okay, that's bullshit. Um, where I stand currently regarding what we looked at today, it might be plausible to have doubts about Pentagon or Building 7, but Building 1 and especially Building 2, when people were already looking into that direction because the other building was smoking, people were looking into it. We have eyewitnesses, we have the plane on several angles, and we have eyewitnesses for the plane. No, you can't deny that because people were already looking into it and filming it. So we have too much footage and eyewitnesses to say that no, the plane didn't hit.
But let me
Hold
add to
on, yeah,
that.
no, no debate. Let's not go into a debate, please. Let's go. Final thoughts, everybody. Go down. We're going to go with Schrodinger's cat now.
Yes, sir. As always, thanks for having me. The 9/11 conspiracy, like many other conspiracies, is a non-starter in so much as you would have to have so many people involved in it. I looked it up yesterday, and I believe what I came up with was 22,000 people work at the Pentagon, and 8 million people live in New York City. The conspiracy is just too big. There's been zero deathbed confessions.
Hmm.
There's been a couple of disgruntled crackpots who have said, certain things that don't hold up to muster. But people just need to start thinking through these conspiracies before they go online and make fools of themselves.
Thank you very much, Schrodinger's. Sean,
As always, Jose, it's always wonderful. I've had a couple good laughs while I was sitting here in the office. Don't get to participate nearly as much. But the whole 9/11 thing, yes, there are questions that people are going to have. I think it's great that people question things, but to deny some of the facts that have been presented, I think it's great that people question things. Point where you're like, what is the point at that point? What's the point of questioning something where there's so much evidence that's compounded on top of it that you're kind of like trying to claw your way out of a hole. But as always, Earth is beautiful.
thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate it. Slick James.
Yes, the chances of two amateurs taking out those big planes with no flight route and both hitting their targets 100%, there's probably a better chance of hitting a lotto 3 or 4 times in a row. As always, Jose, excellent show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. StingRay, and hopefully we got Russian beats that can click and give me final thoughts. Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, so I've just started a stream on my channel that'll involve the after show on this. But I just want to say that I am up for the challenge in X-Plane of someone giving me a starting location somewhere in the United States, taking control of a 737, and using my limited ability to guide it to New York and into a target first time, without missing. And I'm pretty confident that I'd be able to do that. And I'll do it at high speed at the tolerances of the aircraft. At 100 knots, faster than cruising speed as well. So. Yeah, I'm up for that. But again, Jose, brilliant show, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, if you kick off live now before everybody leaves in the chat, I can paste a link in here and everybody can head over there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dean. Russian beats. Final thoughts, closing statements. Are you muted? Probably. Everybody join muted. Yeah, or mute yourself, man. Russian
Thank
beats,
you.
you're on mute. All right, early citizens.
All right, can
You
you
got
hear
it. You
me?
got it.
Can you
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me
yeah. I
now?
hear you now. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jose. Sorry about that. Yeah, I want to thank you again for having these debates. Just like San Diego, just like the so-called Boston bombing, all these events are kill people in their psychological operations. You know, 9/11 was nothing more than a fantasy story of wrapped around the demolition of these buildings, and nothing but CGI fakery and pre-production. That's all it was. You know, and people that are paid to push this propaganda as real when it was nothing more than a bunch of bullshit.
Thank you very much, Russian Beast. I appreciate it, man. Welcome anytime.
No worries, man. Thank you.
I'm gonna try to do this at least. I mean, definitely once a week to bring other subjects besides flat Earth. But it's gonna evolve around flat Earth most of the time. But one day I'm gonna just no flat Earth today. It's gonna talk about whatever, freaking UFOs or giants and some other kind of shit like that. You know, I like it. All right, guys. Who else? Earth is seriously flat. Final thoughts before I close.
Fantastic. I just wanted to say that we do have a different perspective of what's going on in our world when we open our minds. And we do think that no planes hit the towers. And the passengers that were on those planes are probably right there in dungeons right now as slaves, sex slaves. You know, there's so much we don't know. But for sure, we have a gang of pedivores in charge of all the false flags, wars. And we need to do something about it, infiltrate the government, enlist in the army or Marines, and become an infiltrator and don't follow illegal orders. And have a wonderful day on our beautiful stationary flat Earth.
I appreciate it. Two more. Crashes, you've been listening. Quick comment.
Oh, yeah, I've been listening. I just jumped in so I can go over to Dean's after show. But I will be hosting a debate between Christ Puncher and Bandsaw Bandit sometime next week.
Cool. Keep us posted, man. Appreciate it. We got two more really quick over here. Shane, you were here in the beginning. Final thoughts.
Okay. Whenever you look at these kinds of issues, flat Earth conspiracies or the 9/11 conspiracies, what you often find is these one-off things that you bring up sound okay by themselves, but when you start adding context, you find out that it's just not possible when you look at the big picture overall. And we all want answers, but we're never going to get them if people aren't going to accept an answer and research it. But thank you, Jose, for putting these things up and for inviting me on. It's always fun. Always a pleasure.
Not a problem, yeah. And to finish with a big boom, George, what you got?
Hey, Jose, if you want, I'd be willing. I normally don't like to discuss anything about 9/11, but the point that gets missed in a lot of this is that when you have a fully loaded jet coming in at the speeds that it does, the amount of kinetic energy that is contained in one of these jets is massive, and that has to be dissipated all within a fraction of a second or a second, and it's going to act like an explosion. It's a conservation of energy, and if you want, I could make some calculations tonight and come on tomorrow and present them for you to show you the amount of energy that's contained in a jet compared to, how many sticks of dynamite that would be equivalent to. This happens all the time in any sort of impacts, like a rifle bullet impacting or whatever, that you have tremendous amounts of energy contained, and it's what we call an impulse function, and it's when you have to dissipate that energy in a fraction of a second, you have very, very catastrophic events occurring like you do there. In my comment earlier, Jose, that you took offense to, that the arguing is like a bunch of chimps trying to argue the function of a mirror. What I meant on that was that you have non-experts trying to pick apart what was going on, that don't understand the structure of materials, how to deal with the nature of explosives. I manufacture explosives and use explosives and thermite, and I know how these react. Thermite does not burn fast. It's a very hot reaction, but it's a slow performing reaction. And so I wasn't meaning anything personally. All I was meaning was that You have non-experts trying to understand impact phenomena that don't have the background to do that. Now, of course,
Gotta get out of here,
you have people like Dean that can look at videos. Dean has expertise there, and he can help parse out videos. But trying
go to work, George.
trying to ascertain what's happening on an impact, no one on the panel has that expertise.
If you got something put together for tomorrow, just shoot me a message before the show. It's either 9 or 10 in the morning for me.
Jose,
Okay.
real quick,
I'll do that.
one name.
Okay.
Jose, real quick, one name. Danny Jorwenko. Look him up.
Danny Jorwenko. Right. Shout out, everybody. Thank you very much. Who is Croaks? Is this
Type that name
Khaled?
in the back chat.
Yeah, that's Khaled.
Khaled is going to do a presentation on Ranty Flat Earth, so if you guys want to check it out, or if Dean is going to run a stream, he's going to paste the link over here in the chat. You got options, guys. Thank you very much. I got to get out of here. Boom.
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 Just so you know, Russian Vids, you said pre-production. You want to look up the definition of pre-production. I think you meant post-production.
No, I'm talking about pre-production. With all the so-called planes flying into the buildings, that was pre-produced, not after the fact.
No. So pre-production means before you start shooting and laying down anything on film or effects work.
Before, pre means before. Before it all 9/11 went down, they produced it. Why is it so complicated for you to understand?
Because pre and post production are set terms in the film and video industry.
This guy doesn't know a thing.
Russian vets. One of us has been involved in this a while.
How much are they paying you to tell lies, man?
One of us knows a bit about this.
Lies?
So
how much are they paying you to tell lies?
I'm not sure whether it's you or me.
How much are they paying you to tell lies?
It could be me. I don't know.
How much are they paying you to tell lies?
No, it could be you
That's
then.
The question.
Yeah, you've got an amazing argument. It could be you that's a video and production and effects expert.
How much are you getting paid to do this?
Yeah, no, it could be you. You're right.
How much are you getting paid
Okay,
to do
no,
this?
sorry, I'm convinced it is
How
you.
much are you getting paid to
Yeah,
do this?
I don't know what I'm on about. I've got it now.
It's going to make a great video.
Little trigger, didn't it?
You understand what pre-production means?
Yeah,
I don't understand what pre-production means. Does it mean before production? Because I don't know. Help me out with pre-production. It's really hard.
It's very simple. Before it all went down, they produced it. Why is it so
that makes no sense.
That would still be post-production, and they would release it.
Before it all went down, they produced it. They
How many people in
you understand? Why is it so complicated for you guys to understand something so simple?
I think you got it wrong. If they did it
before
before,
it goes on film or is
production.
released. Anything that happens up to that point is pre-production. Everybody wants to argue over stupid finite definitions of words that at the end of the day mean nothing.
That's all we got, Gracious. That's the only thing the guys got.
Right, anyway, guys, really, wait a minute, everybody, are you ready? Dictionary, pre-production, work done on a product, especially a film or broadcast program, before full-scale production begins.
Now you want to
before full-scale production begins.
I would argue that they probably call it production since they were planning it anyway, right? It was just part of the shooting process, apparently. So I would say production. It wasn't even before they did anything. That was part of the deal.
Well, I don't know. If you use the term like pre-production and you get it wrong, I'm not sure what else you say is going to be true.
However you want to dissect it, it was produced before it went down. Are you happy now?
I think it went down before it was produced.
That's what happened.
Yeah. You guys.
I don't think the towers were ever there to begin with.
Yeah, we're all fake. Everything we know.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are so funny. Oh, you guys are hilarious.
I think that they exist now and that they're there, and what you actually see is them building it.
You do have to admit,
stand up comedians for a living because you guys are
sit here and
jokers.
talk to a window-licking nitwit that has no idea what the hell he's talking about. I don't guess we have much of a choice, do we?
You probably smell and look like that gorilla too. That's why you have that as your avatar, right?
I do.
Wow. Oh, look at that, Russian bitch. You jealous because some of them got a better education than you?
Would you like a sniff?
How much they pay you, Mr. Pilot, so-called pilot?
I'm not a so-called pilot.
So-called pilot. I guess I'm a so-called navigator.
I'm Billy Ball from Alabama.
I'm pretty
Billy
well.
Ball from Alabama.
Russian bitch.
FAA pilot registry list.
And I planes, even though I've never been to New York, I know how planes work. I
What?
He
never
flew
flew
over
a
New York. What the
commercial
fuck are you
plane,
talking about?
but I know
If
how
you go to
planes
New York
work.
today, you're going to see the
I
Twin
know how
Towers
planes
standing there
work
because what you're actually
because
seeing
I
in
watched
video
it
is
on
them building
TV.
them in reverse.
9/11 was real
They didn't take them
because I
down; they
saw
built
it
them up.
on television.
Russian
9/11 was
Vids, do you
exactly
have
what
a
was
Russian Vids? Do you
the
have
government
a
told.
do you have a
And I can trust
speciality?
my
Do you have a skill
government
set, Russian
and I
Vids?
get my
Russian Vids.
vaccine because I
Russian
Hello.
Viz,
trust
do you
my
have any
government
education at all,
because the
Russian Viz?
government
Yeah, he's
never
a fake
lies and the
meteorologist.
government
What?
always
Is
tells
a
the
what?
truth.
Is a
And I can
meteorologist?
tell you right
Yeah, he's
now,
a fake
When do you
meteorologist.
plan
He
on
lied to
completing your
Nice.
he told me
That's
GED,
pretty
Russian
cool.
because
Viz?
he was in the
That
Navy
is
in
pretty
When
cool.
1945.
when
And
do you
my
It's a
plan
Uncle
on
King
cacophony.
John
completing your
told me
GED,
so.
Russian Viz?
Yeah, what's
Because
up,
my
stolen
Uncle
valor?
King John told me the government tells nothing but the truth.
I think we broke this guy.
Hey, Russian. Hey, Russian. Can I ask you a question?
No,
Russian, can I ask you a question?
no.
No.
Yeah, do
Well,
you
then
still
what's the point of
maintain
being
that
here?
you were a meteorologist in the Navy?
Yeah.
That was a question for Russian Vids. Do you still maintain that you were a meteorologist in the Navy?
Did I ever say I was? Why you put words in my mouth?
I'm asking you.
Did I ever say I was?
It was a
Okay, I'm asking
question,
you. Were you a
nitwit.
Why don't you
meteorologist in the
cite where I
Navy?
say that? If you can cite where I say that, I'll answer it. But
I
until then, I'm
withdrew
not
that
going to answer it
question
because
and
I
asked a
never
new
claimed that.
question. Were you a
I
meteorologist in the
never
Navy?
claimed I was.
I
When did I
didn't.
claim
That's
that?
unresponsive to my
When did I
question.
claim? When did I claim I was?
I
Let's say the
didn't
answer
say
is
that.
no. Then
When
the
did I
answer is
claim I
no.
was? Get the
The answer is
footage.
Were
no.
you?
Cite the footage where I claimed that.
Were you a meteorologist in the
Did
Navy?
I ever claim I was?
Yeah, you just did.
For the sake of argument, I'll say
No,
no.
I
You
never
never
claimed I
said
was.
that.
No,
Okay,
I
okay.
never
You just
claimed I
said you
was.
was. You just
Case
said you
closed on
was.
that. I
I
just
never said I
acknowledged that
was.
you never said
You
that.
just
I'm
I
said you
never
was.
asking
said I
you.
was. No,
You
Jesus
just said I
fucking
was.
Christ! I'm asking you
I
from
never
a
said I
blank
was.
slate.
Why
From a
ask a
blank
stupid
slate.
question like that? I never
Here,
even proposed.
watch. Hey,
I never insinuated that I was. So why would
Big
you bring
Blue,
that up?
Big
So
Blue. Were
Russian
you a
Viz, can I read?
meteorologist in the Navy?
I never
Well,
said I
no, I
was. So why
wasn't
would you bring it
actually.
up? Why
Oh,
would you
see
say
how
that?
easy that is? StingRay, were you ever a meteorologist in the Navy?
I don't know. I'm so confused.
I wasn't.
I
Yeah,
was pre-Navy.
Shane, were you a meteorologist in the Navy?
Pre-Navy.
See, there's an answer. Russian Vids, were you ever a meteorologist in the Navy?
I never said I was.
I think he dropped out, or else he's just not going to answer.
Yeah,
I
looks like
believe
he's
he rage
gone.
quit.
Yeah,
What up?
yeah. Don't go slandering my Navy brethren, you asshole.
That guy is weird.
Yeah,
I
goddamn.
gotta say, I think the towers are actually standing. If we went to New York right now, all those videos aren't even demolition. It was just them building them in reverse. That's what I think. That's my theory now.
PreProduction. It's movie miniatures. It's all movie miniatures.
Yeah,
Totally.
you leave my Navy brothers out of it too, goddamn it. Russian Vids.
Yeah,
Me?
didn't Pete Shea say it was like a laser from space that destroyed the towers?
Some such.
Oh, really?
Something like that. It may have been somebody else. I don't know. One of them
It's certainly
said it.
believable. If he didn't, it's
I would
believable.
love to see that. I would love
Yeah.
to see that. That's pretty amazing.
And also the proper term is freaking lasers.
Freaking lasers, yes.
No,
Yeah, I'm
it's
gonna,
actually called
hey,
Brookhaven Laboratories. That's
Oh.
where the energy
guys.
weapon is at.
Oh, and Cliff,
Yeah.
we need to start another argument too. Go Army, beat Navy, goddamn it. How's that?
The,
You know what?
the thing with
I
PK,
think
the
less
thing,
of Navy Academy graduates than you do, probably.
hello.
Did
Am I
you
coming
guys look
through?
into the Brookhaven Laboratories? That's actually the energy weapon they use to
Oh,
destroy those
Oh,
towers.
shit. Go crawl under a
Citation
rock
required.
somewhere.
Have you ever heard of that?
For example,
Oh,
is by
Jesus.
minutes.
No.
guys.
So
The thing.
What happened is you guys never answered the
Hello.
question why there were blocks of
I hear
cars
you.
that were incinerated
Everyone keep.
Earth
during
is
that
seriously
day.
flat.
Wait a minute, guys,
Can you give us-
guys, really quickly. George is here. You got something to say, George? Go for it.
Yeah, I need to leave here quickly. But I was just going to say the thing about Pete Shea, you never know. His story keeps changing. I mean, Pete is so delusional to begin with. 2 years ago, he told me that the whole thing with the Twin Towers is that they were lowered by elevator into a cavern inside the earth and was dismantled there.
What?
Oh wow,
What?
Oh, I love that.
Oh
I
my,
love that.
that's amazing.
that is
love it.
awesome. Hey, Earth is seriously flat. Can you give us a big, beautiful, flat, stationary citation for the things you say?
Oh God, Schrodinger, why do you got to pull him in?
Oh yes, definitely. There's this guy. It's a channel. It's called Enter the Stars. That guy talked about that.
Not a channel, dude.
A citation.
Okay, here I'll give you the link of where they found the weapon that destroyed the 9/11 towers.
Every day he'll
and,
be taking this picture.
Is it a conspiracy
So sometimes
site or
it
is
will
it
be
an
to the right
actual
of the
like
frame,
flat
sometimes
out
it's going
real
to be to the
factual
left of
place?
the frame.
Yeah,
And
the
it's
weapons that
measured
were
in
used were a
degrees,
couple of
and
jets.
degrees
That's
can
where
be
the weapons.
translated
Yeah, and
into
they were
minutes
fully
by
loaded with
in
just
your
multiplying
official
Yeah,
story,
they're
yes. In
fully
your
loaded
official
with
story,
people.
yes.
A lot of
But
mass. A lot. I mean, come on, man. You
take a
probably
look
weren't
at it.
even
I'll
born
tell
when
you.
it
No,
happened.
seriously.
It was
Have you ever
televised.
seen
Tens of thousands of people.
George?
Saw it.
Yeah. No,
Come
there
on,
are
come on.
collateral
Day after day, you're
damages
just
and
on
false
here. Day
flags
after
too.
day.
People
saying
die
shit.
in false
No, day
flags
after
too. Don't be
day.
an idiot. All right. Now
No, day
listen to
after
this
day.
point.
You're
All
on
right,
here.
George. Have you
Hold
ever
on, one at
pondered?
a time. One at a time. One at a time, please.
One of the
George,
reasons
have you ever
why
pondered this?
shit
I'm
show
claiming
so
there are
disgraceful
energy
to all the
weapons
people
because
that lost
they
their
are
lives.
cars that were
One person
incinerated.
at a time, goddammit. Stop this fucking shit show.
George, come on, stop denying. But my fact is this: if you could refute this, there were several cars that were incinerated during the 9/11 attack, that they were adjacent to that area. Have you heard of those cars that their engines just were powderized? That's the new term. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Judy Wood's book.
Anything that you state has to be.
These are scientists that are claiming this.
Come on.
Earth
Yeah,
used
I've heard you day after day on here.
No, I never mentioned these cars that were incinerated.
You have no credibility whatsoever.
Okay, look, did you check out the link that I
I'm
put
not
in?
going to check out anything. If you want, you can
Okay,
supply the
well,
link.
that's the evidence that I have provided to you. You want to close your eyes and your ears. That's your prerogative, brother.
I'll tell you what you do. I'll give you a challenge here. You supply the links that you want. If there are videos, you submit them to Dean and let Dean
right
with
now,
his expert.
Let's do
No, shut up a minute. Just let me finish. I
did already.
You let Dean analyze the videos, and I will trust Dean with his expertise in video production and video analysis. I trust everything that Dean has to say regarding videos. If you submit videos,
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
You let Dean look over the videos to the authenticity, and then if pass muster with Dean, then I will look at them.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, bye.
All right. Now, all I'm saying is that when we look at these locations, for example, they have this Brookhaven laboratory 60 miles away. And now when you look into that it aligns exactly with the Brookhaven laboratory, the Twin Towers, when you use your Google tools. And then you also go to the city codes where all the buildings were built. Wait a minute. I'm speaking right now, but let me just.
You need to clear something up before you go any further.
Hold on.
You're saying one point lines up with one other point somewhere on the planet. What fucking sense does that make? Of course it lines up.
Okay, yes,
so
that's
does
right.
Boston,
But now
Massachusetts,
the coincidence
Los Angeles,
I'm telling you why the
anywhere else
coincidence
you
is.
go.
I'll tell you the coincidence with this, because when you go to the city codes, the city buildings, you realize that there were no buildings allowed to be built in between those 2 points. They need a clear path to allow this direct energy weapon to be able to work when they needed to use it. And you could cross-reference that. And if I'm bullshitting, man,
you are bullshitting.
Yeah, you're bullshitting.
Fantastic.
You are bullshitting.
You demonstrate me that I'm bullshitting because you could contact New York City
I'm trying to figure out
and you will see that they did not allow any building permits to block the direct hit between Brookhaven Laboratories and the Twin Towers. That's all I can tell you. If you think I'm bullshitting, fantastic. But that's what I found out. That's my research. If you wanna call me a liar, be my guest. I don't care. But you guys are just swallowing blindly all the official stories, and that's what we're gonna find you in the future in museums.
Hold on.
Gloves, zombies, swallowing false flags, and all this
Really?
shit.
Really? Hey, listen here, you fucking prick. My first wife was a victim of one of those so-called first flags and bled to death in my fucking arms. So was
That's
that
right,
fake
because there
CGI
are
bullshit
collateral
then?
damages, you fucking idiot. There are collateral damages on false flags, you fucking idiot. Of course, people are gonna die when they're fucking doing this. Fucking
facade is failing. What?
Calm down,
Wow,
Earth.
Earth,
Seriously,
chill down, bro.
Chill down, man. See, there's no reason to get all triggered. And secondly, you have to let other people talk. Like, I'm getting actually really, really frustrated at flat earthers who cannot listen to other people, and then they overtalk, like Sleek James, and like Earth is seriously flat, and then they get triggered when they get interrupted.
Hey, watch your mouth now.
Hey, I don't think there's no reason to get triggered. There are things that are that people are sensitive to, and I would argue that if you said something about somebody's dying wife that was anything other than, polite, then it could be a trigger. Don't you agree? I mean, I think that's okay for the one guy to get upset. Maybe he overreacted or maybe not, but
yeah,
it's okay to get triggered. It just depends on what that trigger is.
I know what you mean, brother. I'm sorry, man, for getting triggered, but I'm never said that people didn't die during those false flags. There are collateral damages during those fucking false flag events, all right? We're not saying it. Just like it happened in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas shootings. Also, it was a false flag. There was different shooters.
Are those fake too?
And they killed people. Of course they're going to kill people. The witnesses that came forward to contradict the official story, the narrative, they got whacked too later days after that. So we are on a war. This is imminent war on humanity, and you guys are trying to debunk reality where you think all the people that see holes, it doesn't make any logical sense. You think everybody's fucking crazy.
If this is a war on humanity, Earth, I'm pretty sure you're safe.
We're not.
We're not safe, brother.
No, but no one is.
No,
your grandkids.
Earth is seriously flat. You guys missed my joke. Never mind. Carry on.
Yeah,
you in the middle of this, you all of a sudden you come out with a fucking joke. That's
always come up with
mentality.
Well,
Typical Globetrotter mentality.
You're just telling jokes. What's the problem?
The joke.
I tell a lot of jokes, although I'm not sure that was completely kidding.
I called on to it.
All right. Well, we have serious perpetrators that are abducting our children, that are imposing and playing fake news left and right. Well, you thought Hillary Clinton was going to be your president, right?
What are you equating abducting children to fake? How did you
It's
jump
all
from
about that because the number one commodity right now is babies, $1 million a pop. That's why they don't want to put a wall because they got a great link where they have all this open border. They can traffic any child they want and claim it's their children. They bring it, they sell it to the demon rats that are running.
$500,000?
They're stealing babies. It's a huge human trafficking. We have a huge problem, and that's why Donald Trump is doing all this. What is it? Affirmative orders, whatever they call it.
Donald Trump
arresting pedophils left and right, man. Obama never did that. Everybody's going to Epstein's now.
Obama didn't care.
Fantastic. They got the
shit.
You seem to know a lot about this.
Yes, of course, because we're open-minded, brother. Why not question everything?
So why is it that every time I say citation required, you never speak up?
Because you can find it. I'm not here to. This is not a seminar where you're gonna. No, this is. I'm just spilling my beans. I've been spilling my beans. If you want to check out all the beans that I spill, you could double check it yourself. You're a smart guy.
The only thing
I'm checking it right now.
That's accurate is that Trump has in fact cracked down on the sex trade here in America, at least. So that's the only thing I've heard this guy say that is accurate.
Yeah, but I just checked everything else just now.
Okay, well, the background about all of that, because Trump knows. No, by the way, did you know that
Trump doesn't know shit.
Jr.
Trump is dumb.
Did you know that JFK Jr. is alive?
Jesus Christ.
Have you heard about this one?
Yeah, we go out for beers, me and him.
Oh yeah, I was
talking about the one that crashed in the plane in New York.
That one. He's still alive. Hillary Clinton took his place after he died. You know that Hillary Clinton died, right? I mean, she's the one that actually took his place. They needed him down, but he went in hiding, and now he's coming out. You will see that.
JFK Senior
Then
is
you can
alive,
laugh
too.
all
Did
you
know that?
want. The storm is here.
There's one thing, when you say that we should look it up, the problem is that we can't look it up at the crazy sources that you found it in. So you basically have to point us at the crazy articles that you found.
Oh,
because
it's
they're few
about
and far
critical
between.
thinking, man. I think if you just woke up into this false flags, if you believe all the official narratives,
That's why you
you're
have
in
to
deep
provide the
trouble.
information,
You're in
because
deep
we can't
trouble.
find your
You
crazy
think
places.
everything is official,
You've got
everything
one
that's
that's at the right
official
place.
from the mainstream media, you think is real, right? And you need citations to debunk
We're
them,
asking
right?
you to cite. We're asking you to cite.
I have a question
How
for
about
you
Judy
guys.
Wood's book? Have you ever took a look at the Judy books? Judy Wood's
Yeah, it's page
9/11.
after page of crazy.
Oh,
I gotta ask this
really?
guy something.
Really? So, have you ever
Who
answered the
is Judy
question what
Wood?
happened to the cars that got incinerated? That no plane hit those cars?
The cars got incinerated? Oh, man, I love Rick Ocasek.
Can you respond to
Exactly. You avoid the fucking question. That
Hold
was a
on, Earth.
9/11
Did
out
you
of false
know
flag energy weapons, idiot.
Earth, did you know that Hillary Clinton is Malcolm X?
Oh, yeah. I did know that, actually.
And Malcolm
No, she's a
X is
pedivore,
Tupac.
man. She has daily satanic rituals where she eats babies, brother, and that is the
Yeah,
reality.
she spends $1 million a
That's
day
the
on babies.
But she used to make some dope rap albums.
Oh yeah.
Now we got all these pedivores running the government, and you
Hey,
guys
Earth
got
is
no
seriously
fucking
flat.
idea.
Has anything ever happened in the entire history of the world that wasn't a fucking conspiracy for you?
Well, you have to start looking into
No, I
history
don't. I
resets,
just asked you a
brother.
question. Do you think everything that's ever occurred where lots of people have died is a conspiracy? Is that what you maintain? Because it seems like everything is a conspiracy to you. And basically, most people sit around and do nothing, and nobody cares about anything except for government. They really want to control us to the point where they like killing us randomly for apparently no reason.
Well, it's called Agenda 21, depopulation, brother.
Captain
Have you ever heard
Crunch
of that?
discovered the ice
Agenda 21, depopulation. Have you ever heard of that? That's a UN mandate.
Cool. Explain it a bit.
Oh, you don't. Well, that's gonna be your homework, brother. I'm not here
What's
to
the
explain
number?
you shit. All I'm just telling you, that's you want to know what's going on? It's Agenda 21, depopulation.
So you're saying that they have an agenda that they've given to the
Codex
public to read
Alimentarius.
that
You
can
ever
go
heard of
ahead and
Codex
explain all of these
Alimentarius?
conspiracies, and yet we still wonder if it's even true? Come on, man. Give me some. You know what? We're not stupid. If there is such an agenda,
I think you
that's
willingly
easily
stupid. There are
discoverable,
such people
there
that are
is no
willingly
question left
stupid.
in the minds of anybody, because rational thinkers would have this document, they'd be reading it, they'd be discovering that, well, we are being lied to. Until then, you're talking crazy, bro.
No. In the meantime, you're welcome to enlist your children to the Donald Trump Space Force and send them to light speed and to other planets, light years away, and put them.
Can we send you?
You know, you are the one that swallows all that shit. You know, so you're welcome to train your kids to become astronauts.
You mean you don't want to
become
travel at light speed?
green screen experts?
You mean you don't want to travel at light speed? Why wouldn't you want to do that?
No, that's nonsense. Light speed's nonsense,
why
brother.
wouldn't you
There are
Not
no
real.
world
No such thing.
2,000 light years away from here. That's all fucking
Hold on, Earth.
fantasy, brother.
Earth, do you know that parents do not enlist their children? Children enlist themselves once they are adults. Did you even know that?
No.
Well, brother, you do whatever you want with your
They
children.
follow their parents.
Yes.
And
You
I
wanna
don't know
be-
why you will not respond to my assertion that Captain Crunch discovered the ice wall.
Just like if your father likes football, your son is going to like football. Sports, your son is going to like sports. If your father doesn't like sports, your son is not going to like sports.
Well, that depends on the father. My dad loved it, and I wasn't that into it.
My father hated sports, and I was big time into it.
But FE disciple, I understand your point. It's more likely the case, but not always the case.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I'm pretty sure that people that are astronauts right now, they're not gonna tell their kids, you have to become a green screen expert to become an actornaut.
Exactly. They're going to say that exact phrase, word for word.
And you have to be a Mason. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's the number
According
one.
to Agenda 21, all of the astronauts are going to form a coalition and get all of our children
You have to be a Mason to go to the moon.
Not only that, they're going to put together an academy to secretly train these kids into being green screen experts.
You do not need to be a bricklayer. You do not need to be a bricklayer to go to the moon, Earth. I'm sorry. You need to be
Masons don't all go to the moon. They pretty much
Nobody's gone to, no Homo sapien ever gone to the moon, brother. The pictures show. Listen, if you were in the moon, picture yourself as a Homo sapien on the moon. If you look at the blue marble, you're not gonna see it on the horizon. You're gonna see it on top of your head.
Why
they
would
never
they do
took.
that?
Well, because the moon is always facing the Earth, right? Only one face, and
So
if they landed on the Sea of Tranquility,
you can only
in order
stand
to
in the
see
Sea
the
of
blue
Tranquility?
marble.
So
Look,
if
brother,
you're over on
the
one end,
way
you won't be able to see.
There's only one
you
place
will never see the Earth on the horizon. You will have to
Of
see it
course
on
you
top
will.
of your head. Impossible.
Right. So you can only stand in one spot on the moon, and that's it. Otherwise, you get arrested by the
you can
space
stand on any area surface of the face of the moon, and you will the only way you can see the Earth from your perspective will be if you look up on the top of your fucking head and you see the beautiful
You're
blue
an
marble.
absolute fucking idiot if that's what you
Think about that. Think
Hey,
about
you
that.
think
Just
about
think.
what
Well,
you're saying.
have you ever seen the
It's
ass of the moon?
dumbass. How in the hell could that work? You
Because
are
the
a
Earth is
complete
flat too,
nitwit.
like a tortilla, brother.
Yeah, right.
You only see 59.
I just want to know who this guy's dealer is, because that motherfucker is a great supplier of dope.
Right. For sure.
And you
I
better
don't
lay
even
off
do
Earth
drugs,
seriously,
brother.
Flounder. You're
I
going to
don't
have
even
all
do
the 3 brain
pharmaceuticals.
cells you have left. They're going to be gone before you know it. So you better slow down on that shit.
No, I take MMS every day, brother. The Jim
I
Humble
know.
protocol.
You probably have a tent and you fill it with whatever smoke you have around and breathe in.
I don't even smoke, brother.
Yeah, you don't think you do, but guess what? The government has secret smoke rays that catch you unawares all the time.
I got enough chemtrail in smell. Hey, by the way, have you ever seen chemtrailing from? Have you ever
because there's
seen
no
the
such
blue
thing, so I've
marble
never
with
seen it.
chemtrails all around, like what we see?
Never seen it because they don't exist.
Oh, yeah, see, just another. And Santa Claus do not exist either, right?
No, Santa Claus does
Even
exist.
Nora tells you that. Oh, where it is? It tracked Santa Claus.
I don't know where Santa Claus is.
satellites.
How are those solstice results coming? Well, when can we expect those?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we need volunteers. Would you like to volunteer to tabulate all the numbers?
Yeah, send them to me. cliff.overby@ymail.com.
Come over. All right. Sounds good. We'll send you all the list of all the numbers.
I appreciate it.
But we actually need an army of people to come and do it manually and to help us with the computer. Actually, monkey power. We need more Homo sapiens in the flat Earth army.
Okay, send it to me. I'm okay with numbers. Email them to that email address I just told you, and I'll get cranking on it.
Sounds good. What's your email?
cliff.overby@ymail.com. And when can I expect those?
So demanding.
But actually,
you can do it.
Let me contact the lady. I'll contact the lady in charge of all the numbers.
Is that her formal name? First name the, last name lady?
The lady, that's it.
She's a flat earther, man. What? Maybe it's Patricia Steer.
I think she's married to the man.
Maybe. Could be.
It is horrific what happened to Patricia Steer. You know what happened to Patricia Steer?
Oh, it's almost like you're changing the subject.
What happened? What happened? I want to know.
Getting me those
No,
numbers.
you get your fucking numbers, brother. Thank you. You're going to be an amazing flat earther.
I am going to be.
What happened to Patricia?
What?
Well, thanks to Google, now we can find her anywhere.
What do you mean? You can't find her anywhere?
Yeah, no, you can't find her. Try to Google her right now.
I met her at the convention.
How do you spell her name?
Yeah, I met her many times. She autographed many of my things.
How do you spell her last name?
Just how is it? Come on, you don't know how to spell Patricia Steer?
No, I don't fucking know how to spell. It's a name. It
Okay,
could be
well, that's gonna be
anybody.
your homework, brother. We're not gonna be
Man,
teaching you how
fuck
to
you,
spell
you
here.
disingenuous piece of shit. I just found her first fucking result.
Okay, where is she?
Images, Princess IMDb,
Where is she now?
Princess Sphere Flatter. Hold on. I did a search. I even spelled her name wrong. Boom, there she was. Come on.
Try to interact with her now. Before you could get interviewed. Before you could get interviews.
Did you hear what happened
you,
to Patricia Steer? What happened to her? Thanks to Google, you can't find her. I do one search, I found her. I'm not
you
trying
can't
to
find her
with
to interact with her, you idiot. She used to
That's not what you
participate
said,
in this
asshole.
community.
You said you couldn't find her.
Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake. Yes, I'm an asshole. But
Yeah.
now, thanks to Google or all the censoring to the flat earth, it's so hard to find content. So that's where we, expedite the activism. We're doing almost daily global.
I could find her on Facebook.
Right now, we're right here.
I'm gonna pull up the chat to see if I could get her in the chat.
Right now, we're in front of a school. We're about to start bombarding with all our flyers, flat earth questions to the teachers.
Yeah,
it's going to be an amazing math collaboration.
When you doing that?
When you doing that? We're doing it right now. We're about to start it.
Right now?
Yeah, this is part of our Netflix
okay, you're recording on
we're
it,
working
right?
on. We're gonna start recording, but like I said, I can show you a little bit of the target market that we're doing right now. This beautiful school.
Yeah, let me see it.
It's a junior high school. Hold on.
Because I was thinking of doing that too. Because I have when you said it before, like 3 days ago or something like that, and I'm thinking of doing that.
There's some more students coming out.
Oh, you're actually there. Oh shit.
Also, by the way, here's
we have a big project working on this film because we're interviewing. We have several kids that are here. We got them introduced into the flat earth a few months ago, and they're helping us passing around a lot of the literature with them. We pay them, of course, and we have the approval of the parents, and the school is going nuts.
I hope you do, because if you're not, I mean, the local police would probably really be interested.
Oh yeah, no, we got cops on our side and everything. They're flat earthers, so.
And where is this school at?
Well, I can't tell you right now because we got a lot of hate going on. Yeah. But we're working on this amazing production where we introduce, once we finish with the whole video, that documentary about how children wake up and their journey of waking up and becoming flat earthers, and some of them jump back into the spinning balls and then jump off back again into the flat earth. It's amazing to see their transformation, how they stop swallowing the fake news. And so I recommend you guys to be part of the movement.
Earth. Wait a minute. I've just got a quick question for Earth. Earth, are you on the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I saw you, and you were meeting Mark Sargent, weren't you?
That's right.
Yeah, I recognize you.
Wait a minute, Earth. You probably did. Who did? Hey, Earth, did you go to the Denver conference?
No.
Okay, that's why I didn't see you. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
The only movement you're a part of, bro, is a bowel movement. Let's face it.
Well, the only movement that we're doing in this stationary Earth is to awaken the brain, the mind, to ask questions. That's all.
I assure you, none of that is happening in your movement.
Asking questions.
Earth,
that's why
I'm going to do the same thing here in Florida. What you're doing, I'm going to do it here in Florida.
Yes, just write down the best questions out of whatever you can come up with.
I got those 5 questions.
We got 11 questions. We got that. Those are the most powerful ones. They get stuck on those 5 questions. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but come out with any questions to give it to the kids, to give it to the teacher. You'll be surprised how.
But aren't the teachers are gonna try to stop you or something from talking to the kids?
No, because they're actually very nice people here in the teachers in California.
What happened to the 11 questions that you promised to send me that you never sent?
Well, that's one of the things. I can only send you a little bit because it's proprietary at the moment.
Then why did you say
the whole enchilada?
The 11?
Oh, look, he sent 5, not 11.
No. This morning he said he was going to send me 11.
No, that was my mistake. Actually, I was about to send you all of them, but I erased the other ones because I feel they're proprietary questions, and we're using those for the documentary, so we don't want to spoil the whole.
I don't want to speak for the group, but that sounds totally legit.
When is it going to be done?
Yeah, it does.
Well,
you know what you should be trying to do instead of all that is try to put everything together and see if all of it works on a flat Earth. That's what you should try to do.
well, this is an ongoing investigation, and we're just asking questions, and we put in the teachers on the spot to start just regurgitating.
Oh
And,
man, you should have the t-shirts.
Usually teachers don't get confronted. No kids, no 8-year-old's gonna tell the teacher, "Is that a fact, teacher? Are you sure?"
How can the kids?
Where is the verifier? Where
you
is
won't
the?
give them the
You know, the
11
same questions that you ask us, we ask them, and the
But you won't
teachers
give us the
we put
questions
them.
to ask. I was going to have my
Well,
kid ask
you know
his
what? You're
teacher.
gonna have to come out with your own 11 questions if you want to help this movement.
All right,
You
question
want to
number
help your
one.
Blue Marble
What's up-
movement?
Question number one, what's up with the creepy voice?
What's that with the creepy voice, man? That's the way I was born, brother.
I don't think you were, brother.
We all brothers and sisters under the dome firmament, and there's
I'm not
another
related to
creator.
you, bro. I promise you.
We are brothers and sisters in here, brother.
No, definitely not.
Can you define brother and sister? Because I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah, we all from the same earth, brother. We all.
Brothers and
Actually,
sisters.
you're a brother
Free,
because
wheels
you
and
have the
hum.
same. You have the actual your internal clock. It also synchronized with my internal clock. We're brothers and sisters.
I bet it doesn't, brother.
To that, yes. That's how it works, brother.
There's two ways to be my brother.
Circadian rhythms. Every single cell here under the dome works under the same circadian rhythm. That's it. That's why nobody can go nowhere else, because this is it. This is our
There's two
domain.
pathways by which you can be my brother. You can have one or both of my same parents, or you could have served in arms. Did you do either of those?
I'm a soldier. I'm serving right now.
Are you a hip hop soldier along with Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Sir Mix-a-Lot. That's a blast.
I'm a soldier on one, and I'm a general. So that's it.
Yeah.
I'm a vigilante, would you believe it or not?
Right. I think you probably are a general, but I don't think you have any privates.
Not bad.
That's a
Not
good one.
bad.
That's a good one.
Not bad.
That's a good one. Well, I'm a soldier of one. I'm an army of one. Anyway, that's a good joke. I like that. Brother, you know what? I don't know.
So when's the documentary going to be done?
Exactly. That's exactly what we do. We go out there and we share the knowledge.
Let me
And
tell
what's
you
wrong
what
with
you
that? That's
actually
what vigilantes do,
That's
right?
not what you do. You go out there and you deny centuries of knowledge. That's what you do, and then you try
Just
to
asking questions.
You ask but you ask questions that have already been answered, and then you
No,
don't
they
accept the answer.
give you a very superficial
You
education.
reject the answers that are already out there for you. You tell us to Google stuff, and then you can't even do the same thing to find out the questions you keep asking.
Because I have my own perspective.
Oh, right. So your own perspective has no bearing. Okay, listen.
And I
Your
have an army of
perspective-
people that share
your
my
perspective is
perspective.
not based on facts. It's based on how you feel. Therefore, you don't know what you're talking about. But you can state it like an opinion all day, and I won't argue with you. But the facts don't back you up. They don't support what you say
Your
at
facts
all.
about the night sky, about all the astro movements.
They all make
about
sense when you put it
everything.
in.
No. They make sense to the fantasy.
Dude,
you can make
you
sense of
can't
King
put-
Kong too, right? You can make
You
sense
can't
of
put
King
together
Kong.
any.
Yeah,
Put
this
together
has
three
become
flat
boring.
Earth.
Has
Put
StingRay started?
Put together three flat Earth facts that observably can be possible, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
All right, the
has
fact
StingRay
is flat
started?
Earth, for
Because this
example.
is boring now.
How about the sun and the moon? They're in a synchronous orbit
No.
around us.
No.
You could see them. You could
They're not
check that they
synchronized.
both do the
So they're synchronized.
on the same
Synchronized mean that they're-
orbital path.
they're
They're in
the
the same
same-
orbit. They're
Oh.
synchronized on the same orbital path doing
Then
the
when they
analemma.
cross each other and we have an eclipse, they
Have
blast
you ever
into each other.
studied that in school that they are in a synchronous
They're
locked
not
path
synchronized. They're not
doing the
synchronized. and They're
analemma?
not the
They're
same
both
path.
synchronized.
Okay,
Well,
fine.
you
Let's
argue
take
all
that-
you want.
You've
But
already
they
given me
are
one
synchronized.
bullshit
That's a
response.
fact.
Okay,
That's
let's
if
talk
you
about
ask
that.
for a fact,
Let's
right?
talk about
Now
that.
you
got what fact?
argue.
Here's your fact. They're in the same orbital path. So when we have an
In a
eclipse,
locked-
essentially what happens is they bang into each other.
It's a locked orbital path, brother.
So they're
Repeat
never.
after
They're
me.
always the same
It's
distance
a
apart from each
locked-
other.
They're in
okay.
a locked orbital path. That's
That
where you
doesn't
can
match
predict
observational
the
reality.
eclipse. Of course it does,
No,
brother.
it doesn't.
We can
No,
see
it
that they're
doesn't.
both in a locked orbital path. That they're
No, we
both doing
can't.
the analemma. You can perform a test and you could see
Weird,
the
because
moon
the moon sometimes
analemma.
goes in front of the sun, oddly enough, and sometimes the moon disappears because the Earth is blocking it. But yeah, okay. So they're in a locked orbital path. Essentially, they're in the same
That's
path and they're
why.
locked.
That's
And
why
yet they're
you can
never in the
predict
same
the
position in the
eclipse.
sky to each other. They
No,
vary. That's not locked, and that's not synchronized.
They're following the
You
same
need to look up the
orbital
word
path.
synchronized. You need to look up synchronized because
They're synchronized on the same orbital path.
No, they're
That's
not.
well, that's a term I'm giving you.
Observably, that's
You're
immediately
learning
ridiculous.
something on the flat Earth community.
Wow, I can't believe you said that. Synchronized means
You're
that they
learning.
don't change. You're learning.
They don't
that.
change. They're in the same orbital path doing the analemma. Both
In
of
other
them.
words, they're
Have
always
you
in
ever
the
seen
same
the moon
position in the sky
analemma?
from each other.
Repeat after me. Moon analemma.
Let me say this. You're
Moon
insane.
analemma. You want me to go slow on you? Like
Repeat after
like
me.
Nathan
Repeat after
Oakley.
me.
Like
Repeat after me.
Nathan Oakley.
Synchronized.
Nathan
Synchronized.
Oh my God!
Oakley.
I know it just pisses me off.
Synchronized orbital
That means that they
path.
go. That means that they're always in the same
perform
position.
the analemma,
You're an
brother.
idiot.
Let me tell you, if your girlfriend is following you to the market,
All right,
right?
I'll see y'all later.
Are you both is she following you or you following her?
Hi, dude.
The same path. Exactly. Bye bye.
Is she the same? She's the same distance apart from me.
She's following you. She's
What-
following you all over you, all around you go. She's following you everywhere you go. She's following.
All
And
right.
you can say she's
Well,
locked into
That's
your
ridiculous
orbital
because
path.
the moon doesn't follow the sun.
They
Observably, that's
they
easily
follow
proven
each
false.
other, brother. They
No, they
are in
don't.
the same.
Does anybody else
no matter
agree
what
with
the
that?
time of the year it is?
Earth. So hold on, Earth. Hold on. Does anyone else agree that the sun and the moon are in a synchronized orbit when they look up?
Ask all the flat earthers.
I'm asking everybody. Does everybody agree with that? Is that what you see?
Flat earthers, yeah.
Really? So the sun and the moon are always like in the same spot in the sky from each other in relation to each other. Because that's what
Yeah,
synchronized means.
That's what we see.
No, we don't. Sometimes the moon is closer to the sun than others. Sometimes it's on the opposite side of the sky. Sometimes it's close to the sun. It's
But they're
never
on the same orbital
spot.
path. That's
Oh,
right.
wait. What you said? Are they always opposite from each other?
No, that's not what I said. I said,
Okay.
are they always in a synchronized path, always in the same place in the sky, in relation to each other? Because that's what synchronized means.
It's not really synchronized. It's not really synchronized, but one is going slower than the other.
Then they're
That's
not
right.
synchronized.
But
No,
but at the end they both catch up.
Yeah.
No, but if you've ever, you know what? Do this next time the moon is out during the day. Find something that's stationary. I've done this, and just kind of watch the moon in relation to that stationary object. Particularly, like I used a telephone pole, and I put myself where I could see the moon in relation to the telephone pole, where the moon was above it, kind of like the flame of a lighter.
Yeah, you're gonna find
watch
a
the
5-degree
moon.
difference. Yeah, it's a 5-degree
You can watch
difference.
the moon kind of waver. You can see it go up and down, like it's kind of going up. It's not much, but you can see it, and you can actually observe that. And the sun doesn't do that, as far as I know. But look, they're not in the same synchronized orbit. They do not catch up to one another.
They do catch up with one another, brother.
And what, in an eclipse?
At the end of the year, they both end at the same time.
If they're on the same path,
the moon
brother,
wins at the end of the year. The moon wins, actually.
if they're at the same orbital path, they're going to collide. That's what that means.
No, that's why the beauty of this beautiful dome firmament of our existence. But we're
So
watching
there's a
the
dome,
sands.
right? So you've got one fact that's observably incorrect. They're not in sync with each other. They're definitely not in the same spot in the sky from each other. That's incorrect.
You know what we help you, brother? If you come to our mass every Saturday, we have a mass glovortions here in Sunset Beach. Why don't you come over, and I won't charge you.
No,
and,
where are you
come
at?
to our weekly mass glovortions, and you could ask. And I have a lot of tools and a
Where's
lot
this
of
at?
information. Sunset Beach, California.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could
This
attend.
flat today.
I wish I could attend just to go to California, but that's the only reason I'd go.
Yeah, whenever you're in town, brother, I'll have an extra room. You can stay a couple of weeks in here if you want to. Be at the beach, make an observation.
Your observation.
See 30 miles away.
Look, brother.
See a target that is only 30 feet high, and have a wonderful globe ocean here on Sunset Beach.
Your statement is observably incorrect. So what's your next proof?
Okay, how about another observable proof that we see always? We just had an earthquake last week, and we felt that. We felt the earth move just a little bit. So every time if the earth will be spinning and wobbling like they're telling us, we will be feeling it. We felt the earthquake. And
You had
that's
an earthquake?
every time the earth moves is doing an earthquake, not when it's spinning in your head by the indoctrination. It never moves. The
Okay.
earth is immovable. And
So
we're not
the
spinning.
earthquake
We're
is
not in a
what?
spinning ball, brother. You know.
What is the earthquake to you?
It proves that you could feel if the earth will be moving. But
Well,
it never
the earthquake
moved.
would be thousands of times stronger than what you would expect to feel from a spinning Earth, because that's
And then we're supposed to have a mechanical device telling us wherever you are on the ball, telling us how fast are you spinning, and we don't have any devices that can tell on your wrist.
Of course, earthquakes created Earth.
A ring laser gyro would be one.
No, how do they create earthquakes?
Oh, you know what? Fracking creates earthquakes.
There you go.
Destroying military bases.
How much fracking? How much
earthquakes.
fracking is currently going on in California, the state?
Oh, Jesus Christ, man!
How
This
much?
Demonic, a lot. But
Really?
no, what happened last
In
earthquake that we
California,
had,
the place that
the
hates
Chinese
crude
Sea.
oil, a place that wants to go green, that has a regulation on everything. Every product you have is in California. This causes cancer. So you're saying that they are allowing fracking, which I'm not opposing it. I'm just asking you how much and where is it going on?
Fracking is going everywhere, brother.
Is it going on in California?
I have a property that is fracking right in behind the property.
Are you fracking, or there's somebody fracking on your property illegally?
No, they're fracking. This is the city doing their own fracking.
How do they do fracking? How do you do fracking? I don't even understand that.
You basically break up the coal deposits with impacts instead of drilling, and it's broadly destructive, but it's the quickest way to get to crude oil, and it's bad for the environment.
What type of machine do you use?
I actually don't know how they do that, but it's some sort of pounding machine that breaks up the earth essentially.
Compressed liquids. It's usually compressed.
Okay.
Isn't it like the HARP machine? The HARP?
The what?
The HARP machine?
No, the HARP is different. It's an energy weapon.
Okay.
But no, the fracking is basically like you drilling for oil, but then you inject a lot of chemicals and bullshit.
You're basically breaking up the earth is what they do.
No, but Earth. I wasn't asking about fracking. I was asking about earthquakes.
Yeah.
Earthquake can be done also with energy weapons.
Well, such as the HARP machine, right?
Right. Yes. Exactly. The HARP machine can do earthquakes.
What mechanism does it
That's
use?
That's climate change is all about energy weapons. It has nothing to do with
we already know
global
climate change is a hoax. Yeah, we already went through that.
Right.
Climate change is
the
a
earthquake
hoax.
that we just had, I think it was a military explosion that
Do you guys know about simple? Do you guys know the simple, most easily provable properties of carbon dioxide?
No, I don't know. What is it?
Carbon dioxide traps heat.
Good.
As you increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it traps the heat from the sun. It doesn't allow it to escape the atmosphere as fast. Therefore, you get climate change. And that's what happens on Venus. It has so much CO2 that the sunlight that penetrates into the surface cannot get back out fast enough. So it's 900 degrees.
All the water on the planet is now in
Venus?
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to go talk to the children. You have a wonderful time, guys.
Yeah, have a good. Yeah, damn man, you should put one on video right now.
I was just curious though, before you leave, if you're still here, with the energy weapons causing earthquakes, I was wondering by what mechanism that happens. I mean, you're putting
vibration,
out a gigawatt,
brother. Vibration.
You're putting out a gigawatt of electromagnetic energy.
Well,
what does it shake?
As far as I know about the machine, they used to use it to find oil. They use 30% of their waves, so they tune it up higher, and they can actually create, what they want.
I mean, I've never seen. I mean, I work in the radio industry. I've never seen radio waves shake anything. So I was just curious to know what mechanism that was.
I just do some homework and look at what
I'm in the industry, so
what heart machine can do. Just look it up for yourself.
I
Connect your own
lots
dots.
of claims. I haven't seen
Don't
anything
let a
that explains the
flathead.
mechanism.
Don't allow a flathead to connect a Glober's dot.
Well, usually the dots are like only in the Flathead Community's website site. There's nothing that I've seen in a radio frequency that actually shakes things.
Just look it up.
Ground well.
Because you're not taking my account for it, so I just
I'd be needing to see your link.
Your due diligence and look it up.
I would need to see your links because they're the ones that you guys found.
They're all over the place. We don't have secret links that you can't get to.
No, that's true.
Well, but here's the thing, right? The Globe community, whatever scientists, everything that they do, they draw a conclusion from is documented and everybody has access to it. And yet when flat earthers usually, and I'm not putting this on you specifically right now, but your statement leads me to that. You guys always do that. You look it up, like do your own research or whatever. Like we did, and we've given you the answers, and you continue to reject
Ken. But Ken, he was asking where, like he didn't know anything about it. So I was
I know of things like this. The problem is that I can't find the crazy websites that you're going to.
We don't have crazy websites. That's what I just told you.
They are. But
you don't go to crazy websites.
At least point me at it, because there's thousands of websites that say no, and there's thousands of websites that say yes. I need to find the ones that say.
Well, there's a lot of disinformation websites where you have to be careful.
Well, that's the one reason that we get you to show us your information, because you have found the credible sources.
According to you,
I can't find the credible source that's in your mind.
Okay. At the end of the show, I'll look for it just so I can do it for you.
Well, and I would say that if you're saying something that goes against what is generally accepted and proven, you should be providing the citations without even being asked. You should be able to say, here's what I found, not just here's a link to some dude, but look, I've gone out and done it myself. Especially since
it just seems like
the main flat earth mantra is for us to do our own research. And yet, let me tell you this, I'm not saying I don't know you. I don't know you, but any flat earther that says that I've seen doesn't do their own research.
Yeah, I've done my research. I understand how radio works. I do it for a living. And so if you have something that goes against that, all my sources are going to go back to what I've seen before.
Which isn't going to matter to most flat earthers, because they don't like real evidence. They like what supports their rhetoric. That's what they do.
Come on, man, stop categorizing people.
That's all I've seen, Slick. So tell me different. Like, you're the only person that's come around that's trying not to have an opinion or anything. So if you're a flat earther, then maybe that doesn't apply to you, but it applies to all the rest of them so far.
Yeah, but that's a broad statement, guy. Come on.
Yes, it is. But it's also
apply to you, discard.
It's also based on plenty of situations like this where I'm talking to flat earthers who simply don't do their research. They take it from other people that say that they've taken it from other people, kind of like how the globe earthers present stuff. The one main difference is there are experiments that you can do that are documented on the globe earth argument that you can go do yourself if you really want to disprove them. But yet I see no flat earthers doing that yet. And that's not a blanket statement. That's an absolute fact. Dead to rights. Never seen a flat earther do an experiment to try to prove the ones that they don't buy.
Right. But now, Shane, think about this. How many globe people believe the globe and they've never done an experiment? I'm sure there are millions of them.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, okay, well, there you go. Some people just believe what other people say. So how can you blame flat earthers for doing the same thing?
I don't. What I do blame them for is saying that they don't buy the experiment, but they've never done it. It's one thing to believe it if you've never done it. Sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's they directly claim it doesn't work.
Right. Yet never having gone through the steps to show that it doesn't. And the ones that do these kinds of experiments or demonstrations, like Phuket Word, for example, Bob, a science guy, is showing some of the things that he does that when you look back at it, you go, okay, so he's doing some nonsense to be dishonest. But there hasn't been a flat earther presenting the Cavendish experiment, for example, to show that it doesn't work. Do you see what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I kind of hear you, but you know, a lot of people just don't have the budgets for that kind of thing. That stuff costs a lot of money. That's why you have to go to a real university in order to really see it, right?
Well, maybe. Okay. And I'll give you that. That's possible. But at the same time, in universities across America all the time, every year, people in physics classes do these experiments. So it isn't just a one-off thing that somebody did. It actually, with the Cavendish experiment, it was done over a couple of different lifetimes. I don't think Cavendish finished it. Somebody else came along to finish it. But it's not inconceivable to be able to do the experiment even on a tight budget, or if you have enough people like in the flat earth community. Like, here's my example for you, Slick.
Okay.
The flat earth community went out to do some proof, and they had that Bob guy. They did the documentary that's got everybody in arms. Somebody provided $20,000 for a ring laser gyroscope for that particular experiment. So I'm probably going to assert, and I'm pretty confident in this, although I can't verify it in the moment where I'm at right now, that the Cavendish experiment probably costs quite a bit less than 20 grand. You know what I mean? So I think you can get enough people together in the flat earth community to go through these experiments that have been done and do them as the globe earthers did them, to see if it's true. And then, you know, I guess twist it to a flat earth situation and show it.
You know, and I understand what you're saying, but don't most globe people, they get government science grants, huge stuff. Why? You know, so you got to understand it's going to be a little imbalanced.
Do the small stuff. Do the
small stuff. And if you can't do this, like the Eratosthenes experiment is easy, sort of.
I mean, let's put it this way, Slick. If you could, there's a local ham club around you. I don't know how many miles, but probably within 40 miles of you, you could probably get somebody who's doing an EME bounce, a moon bounce. And you can find out how they do it. You can observe them do it. And they can even let you touch the knobs in some cases.
And I understand that, but the thing is...
But now what are you going to conclude when you find out that when I don't point at the moon, it doesn't bounce back? When I point at the moon, it comes back 2.5 seconds later. Now you find out a little bit about radio and radio traveling at the speed it does. And now you know that the moon is 238,000 miles away, in all likelihood.
Okay, it's just that in all likelihood part that bothers me. Why did you have to throw that on at the end?
Well, because I'm going to give you guys the benefit of the doubt that somehow there's a magic medium that might slow down light.
Yeah, but the thing is,
you're going to have to describe that medium and why you believe it exists.
Right, but see, you're on that side, and even you said in all likelihood, which means even
that's
you have
because
a little
I'm talking
doubt.
to you guys.
No, I understand, but it seems to me that you have a little doubt there. Are you sure?
No, I have none. I have none. But what I can prove is beyond a certain amount. I can just tell you that it comes back 2.5 seconds later.
And there is going to be a slight margin of error.
Notice what you said just there. You said you can prove beyond a certain amount. See, those kind of things don't sound very factual.
Do you understand that everything we do in life is qualified? I could be seeing wrong. I could be being duped. And
with that, yes. And the thing is, with that in mind, how do you expect the person to really trust anything when just what you just said?
I got this one, because it isn't just him that has that data. Everybody's data matches up. That's why.
Okay, so if that's the case, then throwing on at the end in all likelihood is not necessary because it would be a fact.
Well, no, you got to take into fact that with science, there's always going to be a margin of error because the level of precisions that humans can achieve can't be 100% accurate.
Okay, so if there's a margin for error, that means it's possibly wrong, correct?
The margin
but we're talking about the margin of error. 100%. The margins of errors are like, there are no scientific notations with many numbers to the right of a decimal. So it's really small amounts.
Well, why not 100? Why can't they just make 100% fact of this and we wouldn't even be having this conversation?
Because you wouldn't believe it even if we did.
It's not a fact of believing it. In other words,
there is nothing. How tall are you, Slick?
Listen, the thing, forget about that.
Seriously, how tall are you?
It doesn't matter, guys. I don't even take a guess. Just use a number. Take a guess and use the number.
Okay,
go ahead.
You're 6 foot. No, you're not.
Okay.
You're actually 6 foot and a micrometer. And
Okay.
you're 6 foot in a nanometer. And then there's the amount of height that you change because your blood pressure raises the surface of your skin a fraction of an inch.
Okay.
So how tall are you? It's really hard to say. There is no solid answer for how tall you are if you go for full precision. So when I talk about the moon and I say that it's 2.5 seconds later, but the moon actually, where it is in orbit, actually is a few degrees off from where the next guy measures it, and it's now takes a microsecond longer. That doesn't make it inaccurate. It's within the tolerance of my measurement. Just
Okay,
like
so
when I
then-
measure you at 6 foot, I just pick a round number. 6 foot is closest number to the closest inch.
Okay, so what I'm asking you then is that basically, for all intents and purposes, 100% fact that when you do that test, it's like 99. It's so accurate and precision, it's ridiculous. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
In other words, you're saying it's irrefutable. Might as well call it 100% fact.
I got something for you about chemtrails if y'all want to see it.
That would be slick. That would be good enough. Yes, but it's not. That's the point. Science isn't about being dishonest. They're going to tell you it's 99.9999999%, which means that there's a margin of error. But it doesn't mean that we're wrong. It just means that we can't calculate it to the perfect 100%. You see?
Sure. Yeah, I understand that, but it's still a fact that that's what's happening. In other words, it's 100% fact that it is bouncing back from the moon, just like
Right.
it said.
Well,
I'm not
yeah,
talking about
that's
margin of error. I'm talking about 100% fact that it is happening.
Yeah,
In other words, when they point that laser, they absolutely know that there's nothing else that's causing it.
Yes.
I go with microwave though. Microwave's a little easier.
Well, if y'all want
But
some
yes.
facts, here's some facts. In Dubai, they make it rain for 15 years.
Make
Cloud
it rain
seeding.
like they push a bunch of 20s out of their palm.
Hey, look, cloud seeding. This is what the chemtrails are.
Something makes me think that that's not a true statement.
Cloud seeding. So what is cloud
That's how they make it
seeding?
rain.
What is cloud
That's
seeding?
how they make it rain.
With what? Water?
Well, right there, they're telling you what they're using.
Oh, I'm not reading it.
Oh, okay.
I read
There's a
slow.
video. I'm presenting a video.
Salts, environmental salts. Okay.
Okay, so if they make it rain for 20 years, you mean every day?
No, they've been cloud seeding for 15 years in that region.
Oh,
So
okay.
That's what it says.
They're not successful. They have the same
Okay.
15% failure rate or 85% failure rate that everybody else does.
I can tell you this much: Seattle doesn't need any of that.
Yep.
And I still see those ice crystals forming off of plane tips.
Aren't you assuming that that's the same material?
Am
No,
I?
it's not the same material because you can actually see what they're spraying. They have tanks inside of the building. These little small tanks inside of the building which sprays that stuff out.
And it's salt, right? That's basically what they're saying.
Well, this one they're saying it, but on other ones that they said they sell some aerosol cloud seeding, something like that. I'm not quite.
Okay.
Silver iodide.
Now,
carbon
let's
dioxide.
talk about this. I want to see that. So I want to see what that looks like from the ground now. Can you show me that?
What from the ground?
I want to see those chemtrails from the ground. These salt things that they're doing, it looks like they're above the cloud cover there. And the salt makes sense to me because what happens with rain is that the water becomes too heavy and it has to fall. So they're trying to present salt so that it absorbs the water and then becomes heavy enough to fall. But I want to know what it looks like from the ground. Does it mimic what we see when we're talking about how the condensation off the tip of a wing freezes and becomes ice crystal trails? Does it look exactly like that?
If I find one like that, I'll present it.
I think, and I would say that if they're doing these a lot, that there should be video of that too somewhere, right?
Well, I'll type it in here. What would you like? How should I word it?
I don't know. What would you think? Chemtrails. Where is this taking place right here?
Around
Cloud seeding, because chemtrails isn't real. So if you want to find out about cloud seeding, you probably would look at cloud seeding.
Okay, so cloud seeding, wherever these guys are going. What would you say? Ground footage or something?
Yeah, and one of the big things about cloud seeding is it's going to happen demonstrably at a lower altitude than the commercial airliners fly at. They'll be somewhere around the clouds.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Well, yeah, just like NASA. I live here in Florida. They have the NASA machine on the ground level, which emits clouds. I can show you that video too. I can pull that up.
I can make clouds with CO2.
NASA cloud machine.
with a power plant. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that.
Cloud
Anything
machine.
that uses hydrocarbons as a fuel will make clouds.
Yeah, you see this right here?
No.
Oh, okay. Hold on. This machine, they have it not just here. They have some in Louisiana. They have some in. This is right here. That's how lower level clouds are made with this.
Why is that saying RS-25 engine test fired? What is that?
That's what they're disguising it as a test fire, but they're using that to create clouds and make it rain.
Now, just curious, how come within 1 second before anybody said it, I said that looks like a rocket test engine?
Yeah, I was going to say that too, but that's what they're using. That's what they're disguising it for.
Okay, but how? Okay, you're saying now, FE Disciple, you're making a claim. Fine. And how are you backing that up? I don't know what the difference is, honestly, so I'm not here to say bullshit. I'm just saying, what are you using to back it up that this is not a test fire, but in fact a cloud machine? Because it looks like clouds, or
I forget the guy's name. He was doing he was on the BBC. He did a segment on this. And
Can I see?
Probably get it. And he said that yes, NASA is playing God. It rained within an hour of that.
Well, okay, but it rains a lot in Florida, so NSA. Can you just Google? Not just. I mean, let's not look at this video. RS-25 engine by itself instead of NASA cloud machine, just to see what comes up. What the hell is Social Blade anyway?
That's how people make money doing bullshit on YouTube.
Oh, sounds good. I should try that. But I've said I won't. I'll never monetize my channel. I said so.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. I don't want to spend all my time on YouTube.
I don't want to spend all my time with my ass on a chair.
Yeah, exactly.
I got things to do.
Hell yeah, outside is fun.
Oh yeah.
So it's RS-25 engine. Can you Google or search that? I want to see what that is. Looks like there's a few videos on it.
Pretty much showing you the same stuff.
Yeah, except for there's fire in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you
so
see
now,
that how it's going out there? I see that all the time, lower level here in Florida, all the time, lower level clouds, and they just stay there.
Okay. So I'm going to ask this. I'm not asking you to do this, but I'm curious. And if I was to do a critical think on this, you've made a claim that it rained an hour later after this test. I want to see some data.
Okay.
Did it rain every time that test engine, or they?
I can't possibly give you that data right now, so I would have to.
Well, I know. I wouldn't ask you to do that. I'm just saying that if I was to really look into this, I would want to see if it coincided. Because if it's going to rain every time, then maybe it'd be interesting to look into. But if it wasn't every time, then you have what you call a coincidence.
I think this is the guy here. Wait, this one, no.
And what kind of rain was it? Was it your usual rain?
Jeremy Clarkson. That's the guy. Jeremy Clarkson. Let me copy that name because he's the guy. He's older now. When he did
Aren't
it,
we all?
Well, he got great fucking hair. I don't have great hair.
Yeah. Well, I've got plenty.
Jeremy Clarkson.
Jeremy Clarkson is a conceited prick, and I used to run into him many times at the BBC Centre in London, and he's a self-centered dick.
StingRay with the win.
Just thought,
I
just
really
thought I'd
don't
tell
know
you
him
that.
Huh?
I just thought I'd tell you that. You're not allowed to go through, because the BBC Centre in White City in London, it's got stalls, it's got a reception bit, and then it's got stalls at either side of it, or it used to, this was going back 10 years. But when Jeremy Clarkson's going through, no one else can go through the stalls. It's like, fuck off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's how he is.
Those,
He's
huh?
obnoxious.
And that's like, and there was like, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably about six turnstiles as well to go into the building.
To be fair, I thought all you British people were like that.
Yeah, we are. we have six turnstiles, and we can only use one at any time. God damn it, or else there's going to be arguments. That's why shit moves so slow over here.
Exactly. And we adopted that same principle over here. Jesus. We thought we got away from it. No, it's British time. It's Britain too, is really what it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. I'm kidding. I don't think you're all like that.
Yeah, there it is.
I bet he was pissed about that. He's like, what the son of a bitch? He probably had NASA shut it down because they got him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the topic of rocket engines, I saw a guy just randomly. I was watching YouTube videos and I saw this guy who has like 1 hour long documentary quality comparisons of space engines. I
really afford that?
Look up the channel.
And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually.
Oh, so actually doing nodes and stuff works.
Do you know?
I'm pretty sure Mississippi is far away from Florida.
Do you know that they use the water on that engine as cooling, because a lot of the time you've got 1,000 mile an hour wind that's going to cool it. So to run it at extended periods, you shoot either cold gas or water onto it.
Yeah, hydrogen. He just said what it was.
Yeah. So it's not like, hey, let's generate some clouds. It's like, hey, in testing this engine for extended periods of time, how the shit do we get it to stop overheating, given the fact we don't have 2,000 mile an hour winds on it? Someone goes, I know, we'll shoot gas at it, or we'll shoot water at it. And also, with it being that close to something, you need to dampen or cool the ground around it as well.
Now, the most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, it's just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen.
Hydrogen and oxygen. That's what he said. Okay.
Don't take that mad thing and keep it at the ready for something else.
Hydrogen and oxygen. Okay.
Yeah, water.
Water. But was it 2 elements of hydrogen?
Yeah.
Hydrogen and what was it? What did he say?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
Oxygen. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what he said. Oxygen and nitrogen.
Hydrogen.
Yeah. Damn it, my tongue keeps slipping.
So hydrogen, water.
One thing that I'm noticing as I'm listening to these conversations, that no matter what comes up, you guys got an answer for it.
Exactly, man. That's my point.
How far does it go back to where you guys got an answer for everything, no matter what happened? Like, in other words, if I talked about the black hole simulation computer, I bet you could back that up, couldn't you?
Well,
I couldn't.
I don't dabble in black holes.
Well, yeah, no, I don't know.
I can't, Slick. I don't know it.
How far do you go back with your knowledge? In other words, you know the Earth is a sphere, you know things. Where does it end? Where does it stop as far as like when you go
About
back?
300 BC.
At what point do you get to before you start to say that you don't really understand it, or
quantum physics and black holes and infinity.
Gotcha.
Well, before the Big Bang, we cannot say anything beyond that.
And for me, it's pretty much 300 BC.
So what you're saying is that you can basically account for everything back to the split second that the universe began.
Not me.
Well, yeah, not anyone here, but we understand how light works, right? And we understand the speed of it.
Text anything to her.
And we don't understand it all 100%.
How
but
far
what we
does
can
your
see,
knowledge go back?
Here's what we're saying. Okay, there's all this stuff that's happening that we're not doing, right? We're experiencing our lives, but there's people whose job it is to look into this stuff. And people look out into space and they watch it expand. And as they watch it expand, they realize that what they're seeing is light from further away finally reaching us. And they understand that the way light works is that there's a source. And when we see it, that's when we see it. So it's however long it takes to get to us. And we can, and they have, I don't do it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's mathematical calculations and observations with a lot of verification. And they can say, okay, this light that we're seeing right now is X far away. And then they watch. Did you know, Slick, that we're actually watching the universe expand?
Yeah, and that's my point. See, I get all of that, but it seems like a lot of it is like math. In other words, is it possible that they just come up with the math and they say, okay, we got this math formula and that's what we're basing it on, not reality, but on the math. And that's what I question sometimes.
No, because the math is actually the hard, tangible, if you will, explanation of the reality that's discovered. It's the way that we describe it. It doesn't start the reality. It describes the reality that's discovered, I guess, is how to put it.
Yeah. The other funny thing is that generally speaking, you can't use, you can lie with math, but you don't typically do that because it falls apart upon back checking and fact checking.
Right.
It's pretty hard to come up with a false mathematical proof.
So based on what your logic is, based on what you said right there, then you should be 100% behind black holes because that's all using the
No,
same
I don't understand enough of them. I don't understand the math.
Right, but I'm just saying is, but they do. Since they do, and they have all the logic and all the math, and they're saying that it's this, why aren't you jumping on board 100%?
I'm a little bit more zetetic in my method. Actually, I do things that I understand. And
Right,
I
so,
can easily prove Earth's round without going to black holes.
Sure, I understand, but I'm saying just on the conversation we're having, people are talking about how they can look back and examine light and come up with mathematics. And my point is, if you stand behind that, how come you don't stand behind every single thing they say? And whenever they say black holes or whatever, you don't jump right in on that and say, yes, that's exact. Because they got all the measurements, they got the math, they've seen it.
Slick.
Yeah.
Everybody in this panel has got a lot of common sense potentially, and all they will say is if they can comprehend it and understand plausibly how it can be true and then trust the source, then yes, we will say that. However, if you trust the source but do not and not able to comprehend it, therefore plausibly accept it in your own mind, there's always going to be doubt. And it's just honest saying that. There's nothing about it that's conspicuous. People don't just, or people that I experience that are globe earthers on this debate scene, don't just blindly accept stuff, and they don't look for confirmation bias either.
Right. If I see something that maybe makes me think we might not have that right, and by the way, I don't think I'm smart enough to do that, but if I did, then I would wonder and question it. I might not even be able to prove it, but I would have my doubts and I would be open about those. But to answer your question, Slick, I do support all of that. I just don't know how they figure it out, and I trust them because they're right. But I do know this. It's not that hard if you're doing something like that to observe things and then to apply mathematical equations and to see if that's accurate. And once you have that, then you can test it. And I'll give you an example. The right triangle, the Pythagorean theorem, you can draw a triangle to any length you want and make it a right triangle. And you can use the Pythagorean theorem by measuring two sides. You can figure out the hypotenuse. I've done this. It is accurate. The mathematical equation can actually be proven. And you can use that on any scale. So if you take that mathematical equation, you can solve all right triangles always. That's why math is used, because once you've been able to verify it with tangible source, you can apply it until something else changes it, like the black hole thing that you're coming back to. We see light going around these areas in space that have no light, and yet we see light around them. So we're trying to figure out what can cause that, and the only thing that can cause that is something with so much gravity that it won't let light out.
It's like, I hear you, but it sounds like what you're saying is that you're just confident in the math.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you. So that's my point. So I'm just saying, like, are they really actually seeing reality, or are they just seeing the math of reality and they're confident in the math?
I think what they're doing is they're seeing the reality, and in a way, in order to measure it and to explain it, the math equations come out.
So now, do you think that you could take a math equation like the Pythagorean theory and measure something that's, say, 30 light years away?
Well, yeah, if I can verify the angles, certainly. Like, you know how Eratosthenes figured out how far away the sun was. He was wrong by a little bit, but you know how he did it, right? Or am I thinking Aristarchus?
No, I understand the concept, but aren't there some assumptions?
Yeah, there's always going to be some.
Well, that's my point. See, so I'm talking about their assumptions made based on that. So that's what I'm talking about. When you come up with all of these math things, if you got any assumptions involved, then your input is only as good as your output. So if you input in assumptions, your output is assumptions.
That's a true statement. And, in the past, there has been slight, I would say, updates on some of the stuff that we know. But as you trend forward in time,
sure,
these little adjustments get smaller and smaller. So it just, if they were getting, I would probably be way more questioning if updates like how far away the sun is, etc., were jumping all over the place. Oh, it's 50 miles. No, it's 600,000. No, it's 12 billion. No, wait, it's 300,000. But it's not. It keeps getting closer and closer. It's like smaller and smaller, and so
I got you. So based on that logic, it's almost not safe to ground yourself in anything because tomorrow it could all change. Is that a correct statement?
I will not agree with that, and I won't agree with it because a lot of these things that we do and we know about are safe to ground yourself in.
Okay, then with that logic, let me ask you this. Now, you're aware of the electric universe, correct?
The what?
The electric universe.
I don't know what that means.
You never heard of the electric universe?
It sounds like a television show where they dance a lot.
No, there's an actual electric universe theory. I'm surprised you've never heard of it. It's pretty big.
I haven't heard of it, but what is it?
Well, somebody else on the panel have heard of it, I'm sure. Well, there are scholars.
I can look it up if you don't want to tell me.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm telling you now. There are scholars that say the universe is not what they say it is. They said this gravity-based universe that everybody's going by, they're coming up with new theories that maybe it's an electric universe. So that's my point when I'm saying things can change. 20, 30, 50 years ago, no one ever thought of an electrical universe, but now all of a sudden it's becoming prominent.
I see. Well, I would answer that with, for however long before Einstein came around, all we had was Newton's laws, right? And Newton's gravitational equation was missing something. So Cavendish came along and provided what Newton couldn't find, and that was the gravitational constant. So we used his calculations for a long time to do many things with great accuracy. But then Einstein had a theory that it wasn't actually density that was causing gravity, but rather the bending of time-space, which don't even ask me to go into because I don't fully understand it. But as of today, his theory hasn't been disproven. Everything has pointed toward Einstein being correct. But it doesn't negate Newton's laws. It doesn't negate what he said. It just adds an element to it, more like the why it happens and the mechanism around it, as opposed to
sure, I get
Newton's law. Right, so we go along with that, and then we change a little bit because we have the better understanding. So let's say this electric universe is this theory is actually eventually proven. It's not a theory; it's a hypothesis. If it's actually proven, it becomes a theory. Then here's what I would suspect.
In other words, what I'm saying is that right now the electric universe is developing. That's becoming the new development in theory.
They're studying. It's not a theory yet.
No, I'm just saying, but they're talking about it. In other words, scholarly people that know much more than you and I are coming up with new theories. So hold on. So what my point is, based on things like that, isn't it kind of, I know myself, I wouldn't want to ground myself particularly into anything because new theories are being discovered all the time. You never know. In other words, you never know what they're going to discover 100 years from now.
Yeah, but
and I'll just say this. I'll say this, and then I'll yield my time for whatever. You're going to find that as these theories develop, they're just going to add understanding to what we already know, as opposed to change it. That has been the course of science so far.
Right,
Okay.
but you may want to look into that a little more because there
Oh,
are
I
people
will.
right now, scholars that are saying, no, gravity was a mistake. It's all electric. And I'm not talking about low-level people like me. I'm talking about the same type of scholars, the same type of cosmology people that are.
Right.
I'm saying, you know how
But
you have one
even
person say one thing and you have someone else with an equal amount of education say something totally opposite? That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
But
but
Slick,
like
I'll
even
look it up.
at that method, or even with that in hand, the people who believe in electric universe still believe in gravity in some form. There is a force that pulls mass down. But the cause
Right.
is they're now postulating a new postulate for that.
yeah.
But gravity still exists. It doesn't change that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
Because
I
well,
don't know what you're.
no. Because Slick, the electric universe is about electromagnetism, and yes, that's fine, except non-ferrous things still fall. So there needs to be some force on that. So they say the electric universe people still believe in gravity, but the general consensus is that gravity is a manifestation of bending of space-time in 4D space,
Sure.
not 3D.
Listen, this is the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is this electric universe thing, this is a separate group of people. This is not everybody all joined to
No,
hold on.
I know about
This is
it.
not everybody all joined together going in one direction. We're having a divide.
Yeah, but the going back, another important point about what you said about things changing and getting hung up on ideas. If you look at the distance to the sun has been revised many times, and it's only recently that we've actually radio ranged the sun. So equipment and technology move on that allow us to take more fine measurements, and an example of that is an atomic clock. You know, if you think 100 or 200 years ago, how accurate was a clock? How accurate were we at measuring time? The answer today is 1.1 quintillionth of a second. That's how accurate we are today. Now, what does that mean? Well, now that we've got that technology, we can demonstrate in 3D space the bending of space-time, because time can be measured differently in increments of 1 foot elevation from the center of mass of the Earth. That's how accurate things are now. So things get updated and made more accurate. They're only ever best guess. So yeah.
And I understand that, but with what you just said, by technology tightening up so much, you would think that there would be no divide because technology has gotten so tight. We shouldn't be having divisions at this point in the game, but we are.
Yeah, but technology, well, the divisions are about things that technology still don't help us with. So the origins and cause of the nature of how time and space are interweaved together in 4D calculus.
What about, let me ask you this, StingRay, what about quantum mechanics? Don't quantum mechanics change a lot of things? In other words, 200 years ago, they didn't think anything about dark matter. Now all of a sudden quantum something came along, and now all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, this is not working like we thought it was supposed to. Now we got to have something, an answer for that. So my point is, you can't ever ground yourself into anything because every time you turn around, something new comes along and they find out that, wait a minute, this doesn't work here.
Yeah, but
we thought it worked. We thought it worked everywhere, but here we find out it doesn't work.
Well, saying it doesn't work is a little bit different. So there are galaxies that we've observed with a certain mass and certain accumulated mass and gravitational forces that dictate the speed. And we know that our galaxy is awesome at creating stars. Yeah. Now, given that, there was a theory based on our own galaxy that we need a certain mass and a certain activity to reach optimum star production. Now, if a galaxy ever got beyond that mass, it wouldn't be able to produce stars because of the gravitational fluctuations in it would be so strong. And I forget the proper reasons, but they've just revised that now because they've got electro telescopes to look into heavier galaxies, and they can see star production in galaxies with a mass that shouldn't, based on their calculations, be able to produce it, yet they do. And that's a recent development in the last 5 years. So there are never any absolute answers. There's best guess theories, and the probability of them being right, given the best of our understanding at that time, they're always going to be revisions.
Sure, and I understand it. And my point is, because of that, I'm not sure it's always a safe bet to ground somebody's foot in the cement, because you never know what new development might wipe it all out and change the whole thing.
Yeah, but the problem with that's like saying it's better not to love. Take the same example of love. It's better not to love because you just might lose it, and we all know the adage there. So,
right, but that's not the same thing because hold on, don't use love because that's not a comparison.
Science doesn't really usually do that, though. I mean, theories change, but most of the time, well, in fact, I don't know of a scientific theory that changed anything until we figured out the Earth was round. But other than that,
quantum mechanics is causing some big changes.
Changes or alterations of what we understood.
Changes in understanding things that they thought. Now they're finding
changes in understanding don't matter if the understanding is deeper.
Yeah, you got to give me a chance.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if you go back, say 200-300 years, they had no idea about quantum mechanics. It wasn't even a thing. So now back then, if somebody grounded their foot into what they thought reality was, now all of a sudden quantum mechanics comes along, they wouldn't have been able to understand it or accept it because they couldn't get their foot because they've already grounded themselves. But you have to be open to whatever new may come. So just saying that something is going on today and we know this, we know that, my thing is that I don't think we know anything because tomorrow it could all change.
But by that standard, we don't know where. By that standard, we don't know if your doctor is going to be open when you get there.
You don't.
If the grocery store will be open.
You don't.
You exist. You work within the realm of reality and best evidence.
And I would say, Slick, that it's interesting you use the word grounded because there's a story that kind of emulates what you're saying, and that's the story between Edison and Tesla, where Edison was very locked into direct current power, and Tesla understood alternating current, right? And Tesla realized that you could ground stuff, and then it took you farther because he grounded. But it's kind of a funny story. I'm trying to use that as an anecdote. But what I'm saying is, what you're providing for a point is pretty valid. But at the same time, what usually happens is not so much things change; it's that they get better, but they still lean on the previous understanding that just it's improved upon essentially.
So then if that's the case, then there should never be any split in direction. Everybody should always be on the same page with that logic.
No, because
in other words, this is what there should never be any disagreement among scholars based on what you just said.
No,
because there's always a hypothesis being postulated.
So yeah, but based on what you just said and the way knowledge progresses, why should anybody ever disagree with each other? Why should one scholar disagree with another?
Because we can be missed.
They try to work with it.
No, we're fallible and we're wrong, and sometimes you get even. So I used to be in computer game development for a long time, doing console games. Now we used to develop games over the course of 6 years, but we knew in those 6 years that at some point in that time we all get tunnel vision. So we all maybe think, hang about, this would be an awesome idea. But it might actually not be. But we're so involved in it now, or we've got so many preconceived notions about what is best for the game, we lack the empathy to be able to judge what a gamer or user might experience. So we always bring in outside to do focus group testing and that kind of thing. There's no difference in anything. Sometimes you can have preconceived notions that lead you down the wrong path. There's always going to be that because we are flawed human beings in our thought and cognitive processes.
Also, we are basing on incomplete data, so that's always also going to hinder.
Yeah.
It's just that I see scholars on totally opposite sides of the fence, and they're both scholars in the same field.
You also see that a lot of times the scholars on the non-standard side of things are wrong.
Yeah, but that
more often than the alternative.
But I'm not picking sides. I'm just saying this is what happened. But so if everything is on the same page, everybody's on the same path, and progress is going the same direction, why do you have scholars in the same fields disagreeing with each other?
Well, I'll tell you this much, Slick. The best part about that is the method at which they arrive at their conclusion is the same, so they'll get to the bottom of it with that, and one of them will be right and one of them will be wrong. And if one of them is wrong, it was always right, we'll alter it a little bit. It's not going to be like 1984 where suddenly Oceania is winning. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what's going to happen. I promise you. as the understanding changes, nothing really changes on the actual mechanics and the actual observations. It's just the description of why and how.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. The point that I'm trying to make is, let's say that I can only go so far because I'm only at a certain level. Now, let's say I can watch a documentary on quantum mechanics, okay? I watched this documentary, and here are these scholars explaining it. I can watch another documentary, and they'll say that what I just watched was a bunch of crap.
You're admitting that's quite a general.
No, I'm not making it general. It happens all the time.
It's an oversimplification.
No,
That's not how it works.
No, it's not an oversimplification. This happens. That's why I'm talking about it. I watch a lot of that stuff, and I'm not talking about YouTube videos. I'm talking about government-based stuff. I can watch something, and I'll watch something else, and they'll say, "Well, you may have heard this. That's a bunch of crap. This is how it really is." It happens all the time.
I've never seen that.
Oh yeah, look, dude, I look at everything.
Actually, I'll support Slick on this. So, being a 3D artist, I knew what index of refraction was visually and what it did to me. I never actually understood, I never really understood what it did on a macro level, and certainly not on a micro level. So I went off and I searched on YouTube after getting into this flat Earth bollocks about, well, what happens on on an energy level? What is refraction? And I watched 4 videos, and they all gave different explanations for what it was. Only one of them was clear, concise, and 100% correct, and I had to verify that with other people that knew exactly what this was. And one of them was partially correct, and the other 2 was quite misleading. Now, the thing about that though is I've got the ability to go to someone that I know really does know their shit, to say, just tell me which one of these is correct and let me research it. There's always going to be misleading information for people like you and I layman's looking at specialist subjects. There always is.
Let me ask you this, take it to another level. You've got the Big Bang and you've got intelligent design. You've got equally talented scholars on both sides of that conversation, but one of them's wrong. You understand what I'm saying? So if you got PhD level people on, with the same level saying 2 opposite things, how do you know which one makes any sense or either?
Right, because very importantly, on my previous refraction example, that was how something works that we can see as evident. Whereas what you've just said, we've not even got to the evidence part. So, well, what's the evidence for the Big Bang? What's the evidence for intelligent design? And I can evaluate that. So the background radiation, the Doppler effect, the red-blue color shift of stars, all within physics tell me the Big Bang is true. Some mythical dude sacrificing himself in a nonsensical way to please himself for the sins of fucking God knows what. It's ridiculous.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about PhD scholars that push intelligent design. I'm not talking about church people. I'm talking about scholars.
You know what's interesting about that is that there's PhDs in plenty of subjects, right? And if you take theology as one of them, theology really is, it's hard to prove because you can't, and there's nothing solid or concrete. It's all about belief. Whereas science and space, yes, I do, but we also have to consider that it is kind of apples for oranges if you're talking about those 2 debates.
Not really. No, it's not apples and oranges, because you have we're supposed to be going in one direction. Technology is supposed to be in one direction, but you have people with equal amounts of education divided. Why is that? Why is there 2 choices? Why isn't there just basically one and everybody on the same page? How is it possible that somebody could go another direction?
It's not necessarily 2 equal educations either. Right? There's people who get PhDs in different fields.
So are you saying that everybody that has an intelligent design theory are not educated?
No, I didn't say that at all. I said PhDs can be in different fields. He could have a PhD in theology.
No,
I mean, it's kind of like someone with a fine arts degree, like what do you know about anything with a fine arts degree or something like that? You certainly don't know astronomy. And if you're talking about theology, intelligent design, you're talking about somebody who went through school for religious studies, which have no basis in science.
I'm not talking about church. I'm talking about.
I know, but to have an intelligent design argument,
theology. Intelligent design is not theology. Where are you getting that from?
Yes, it is.
What do you call it then?
No, I'm talking about the two competing fields: Big Bang Theory and intelligent design.
Intelligent design is theology,
what you're
bro.
telling me is, okay, so what you're saying is that there's no science in intelligent design.
No, not really that I can think of.
Thank you, man. That's what I was going to say.
Well,
it's not scientific.
You're showing me something new because I did a lot of research on it, and there was a lot of science involved.
A lot of there's a lot of speculation about things, but
There's the speculation. What do they call it? The
but like when
tuning
you think
argument,
about
stuff like that. But there's also nothing that says that those finding tuning arguments are not just the fact of how the universe is.
Yes, but at the same time, how can you just totally discount intelligent design when you have to have intelligence to even do that?
You're anthropomorphizing a concept.
Right, but
that's the problem.
You're talking about intelligence developing on its own without any, you know what I'm saying? It just seems
the problem on the surface. The problem with that, Slick, is you could go backwards and backwards. Who designed the designer? Who designed the designer? Who designed the designer? And at some point, given the laws of probability, no one designed the designer. It designed itself out of random shit. Basically,
nothing spawned the most amazing creature in the universe.
StingRay, what if it was always here and it didn't have a beginning like the Big Bang? What if it just always was? Like, in other words,
what if it always wasn't?
In other words, you know how the moment now, right now, there's this moment. How do we know that it hasn't always been now?
There's a good question.
Well, first of all, how far back we talking about smoking dope?
You understand what I'm saying? Like, so when did now, as far as I could see, I could never go back to a time when it wasn't now.
Perfect. That's a perfect example because you know what? Science can actually trace things back to their roots, whereas you're talking about something you can't even trace back because you don't even know.
No, what I'm telling you is
what are the roots of Earth, right? Okay, we can dig it up when we can say this is what it's made of. And then we could figure out what everything else is in the universe with infrared and other types of technologies. And we can go, okay, so apparently this is what happened and we can see it happening. Whereas what you're talking about is a concept that you can never fully make tangible enough to describe in full. Okay, there's two different lines of thought.
It really doesn't speak on the concept of intelligent design for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, because
so now
it's an unknowable. The universe could have started with a Big Bang, and there could have been an intelligence behind it. Don't know. At that point, everything breaks down. We don't know what happened before.
Wait a minute. What about steady state? The universe could have been here the whole time, and it never had to be.
Doesn't seem to be at this point, but it could be.
Because we can also observe it. We've also observed it expanding. That's the point.
There's different theories, and you can't just pick one and say, well, this is the correct one. The rest of them are dumb.
But you can eliminate theories.
Okay, but how do you do that?
through
let me ask you, did you eliminate which theory did you eliminate?
Let's eliminate the flat Earth theory.
Broad.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to. Which theory did you eliminate as far as the Big Bang and design? Which one did you eliminate?
You're talking about which one that I personally eliminated through observation and experimentation. Is this what you're going at?
No, just in your mind, you personally, which one did you eliminate?
The intelligent designer thing.
Okay, now how did you? In other words, now you eliminated that in your mind. Just briefly, how did you do that?
See no evidence.
What do you mean? Yeah, I mean, there's no
some basis for the elimination.
Yes, the lack of the lack of actual evidence to support the idea of a creator.
Okay, so but look at everything around us. We got wildlife, flowers, trees.
Yes.
Look at the eye. Hold on, I'm almost there. Well, look at.
Are you gonna say the eyeball?
No,
don't say the eyeball.
Just hang in there. Just hang in there. Two more minutes. No, 2 more seconds.
Slick will.
You have to have a man and a woman. You have to have a man and a woman to make a child. Correct?
No. Technically, no.
Well, if you take it way back, I mean, you have to have semen in an egg, which requires a man and a woman, right?
Okay,
right, so for humans.
Right.
That doesn't.
Now,
that doesn't.
How do you? Hold on.
Wait.
How do you see
But I want to eliminate a mild generalization you're going with.
That's true.
You're referring to heterosexual
mammals.
Reproduction. Mammalian. You're not covering all the other ways in which reproduction is done throughout different species.
Okay, at some point, right? At some point, doesn't it take a male and a female to have a child?
Look up the pig butt worm. It has no sexual
So in other words, is there any history of 2 men or 2 women having a child?
You're not listening. You're trying to pigeonhole into a generalization.
No, I'm not.
By going, yes, you are. You're going man and woman, male and female. There are animals on this planet that are neither and both.
But
There
I'm
is
not
such thing
talking
as
about animals. I'm talking
Yes.
about people.
I'm sorry, people are animals, so I'm sorry. That's a
Okay,
moot
but
point.
I'm only talking about human people.
Yes.
Just forget about everything else.
No.
Human people. Do you know of any other way?
This is why I'm not letting you pigeonhole it into only male and female humans, because that argument goes out the window the moment you introduce species of any life form that produces asexually.
Well, not just that. I'll add something to that. Do you know what protogenous hermaphrodites are in the animal species? There are multiple that you can't just disregard the whole biological system of this planet, because there are species, moray eels, some fish species that can change sex spontaneously, given environmental factors and lack of opposing sex to reproduce.
But see, the thing is, because you won't
Komodo dragons.
Because you won't let me make this point about the humans, I can't.
Because
take
you're
it any further.
pigeonholing.
I know, so I'm saying because you won't let me do that, I can't take the conversation any further.
Right. I'm not allowing you to pigeonhole something.
I
which
know.
is
That's why I'm saying I can't take it any farther. That's the end of
but
it.
Slick, you're about to make a point about one avenue of life on this planet when there
You
are
don't
many.
know what I was about to do because I got stopped and I can't do it now. So don't tell me what I was about to do.
All right, let's see if you're correct on that and we're not wrong when you finish. Finish your point. Let him finish.
Thank you. All right, now we have man and woman. In order for a child to be conceived, both of them have to be involved in one way or another, whether it's test tubes, fertile innards, whatever, how you want to do it, that has to happen. Am I correct or not?
With humans, yes.
Okay, so I'm only talking about humans. Now,
cloning.
Hold on. Now, before I could dismiss intelligent design, I would have to understand how can something start from just the Big Bang and end up to a man and a woman coming together to have a child. How did the Big Bang do that? Hold on. How did the Big Bang do that randomly?
I'm sorry, you're pulling off a Kent Hovind, dude.
I don't even know who that is. Listen, I don't even know you forget about that.
Quite all right, but yes,
listen, I don't know any of his arguments. I'm just talking about this is from me. This is my own thing.
Well,
So
here's the answer to that question. It's this simple. You are asking about how one avenue of possibility is possible in intelligent design, but there's many. So it kind of throws that argument, your point, out the window, because it's not the only way reproduction is possible. So the Big Bang Theory has produced a situation where things can reproduce regardless of whether they have an opposite sex species for them to mate with.
Remember, I'm talking about man and woman. Stop going to
But
the
that's
other
not
species.
the only thing that exists
I
in
know,
the
but
universe.
that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about
See, I was
those.
right.
just want to see what I
You would
want to
have
do.
a point. You would have a point if humans were the only form of life, but that's not how it works. So it's kind of like.
Go ahead. I'm
it's
sorry.
not-
Technically speaking, if we roll with Slick's argument, it also debunks intelligent theory as a valid option, because the only way we can have a new human is man and woman, and God or intelligent design is not man or woman, so we can throw that out of as well.
Now, if you want to go back, though, you can also, if you want to try and take it back, you go back. We had man and woman came from a progenitor species, apes, let's call it for lack of a better term. Go back before that, it was some younger monkeys creature. And then you go back beyond that, we work our way back to it's a rat, and still we're male and female alike. But when you keep on taking it back, you end up at a point where you have the multi-gendered, multicellular creature like frogs that can spontaneously change gender. And basically, you're asking a malformed question where you're saying, how come humans do it? Because right now, this is how it works. But if you follow the trip to getting here, you get to the point where
So it,
where it wasn't
so at
always
some
that way.
so at
It
some
wasn't just
point,
we arrived
hold on. At
here as
some point
humans.
along the at some point along the chain, when humans were developing, at some point they didn't need two people to reproduce, right?
They weren't people.
What? But at some point, in other words, there was at some point in a human development, wherever it was, whether it was apes or whatever it was, at some point it had to get to where it needed two to reproduce, whereas before that it was one. Is that what happened?
You're asking if you follow the chain of all the way the backs, all the way you're going, okay, from, like we were saying, it's a matter of the evolution where we go from what we are now and you follow it all the way back. There's going to be a certain point in the evolution of a lot of animals that we're related to as well, that we end up coming to a point where, yeah, there's going to be basically what would amount to a cluster of cells that would be asexual. Eventually, you will get to that point where that happens. But
So
we're talking.
So are you saying at some point it was single, and then at some point it divided into two, and that's where male and female came into play? Is that what happened?
Well, not quite. Not quite that.
I'm just trying to understand it because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, if you could help me understand it.
Not quite like that, but not it just didn't go, okay, now we have two, therefore you could have two of the same cell and those two cells can reproduce asexually just like the first one did. But there's going to get to a point where on an evolutionary scale, it is somewhat advantageous to have two separate sexes.
And you know what?
So let me ask you this: what came first, the male or what came first? What came first, the male or the female, or does anybody know?
Technically, both.
So wait a minute. One person was the male and the female.
It's not a person. That's not a person.
Okay,
we're not talking about people.
We're just having a conversation. So when I say person, I'm talking about human. In other words, was there?
Yeah, we're not talking about people at that point.
I know, but I'm talking about people. What I'm saying is at some point in time, was a person just one entity, but was both?
No.
That's what I'm trying to understand. Explain it to me.
The genes split so many times that by the time they became hominids and better, then they had sexes. But up to that point, so if you talk about people, if you just want to bring people into it, we are the current form of life that's dominating this world, and so we're the latest. That means that originally, if the intelligent design was true, he created a single cell that was able to reproduce on its own, that it would eventually become this.
Right, but we've eliminated intelligent design. We're on Big Bang. I'm trying to understand, how did Big Bang?
We're on evolution right now. I don't know where you're getting Big Bang out of that.
I'm saying in that direction, another evolution. How did that get us to where we are now? I'm trying to have somebody explain.
It's a lot easier to imagine that at the beginning was a huge explosion of gas and matter that eventually formed something, and then it created a situation like Earth, which, as we know right now, is the only place that can harbor life. So there's bacteria that began to emerge from the planet's surface in the water, and then it became more and more and more accidentally. That's way more easier for me to believe that happened rather than somebody was sitting on a mythical chair somewhere and decided, I'm going to make some people and make them suffer. Boom, here you go.
So is this basically just come down to what it's easier to believe? Is that what it is for you?
No.
Occam's razor, maybe, but no, think about it. What is more likely?
Listen, I'm not
human
talking
beings
about
are the
religion.
latest. We can show that if we go back far enough, we can show that we're not human beings on this planet eons ago.
It's just that you're talking. I'm not religious, so don't get me wrong. I'm not religious at all. So yeah, that's what I'm trying. I want to establish that.
Okay. But I'm saying that if you go back far enough in the history of Earth, you don't see any evidence of human remains. There's some that are similar, and there is a missing link, but we are the latest.
So with that logic, we're still developing and changing, right?
Yes.
So like a million years from now, we may not even be humans anymore. We could have evolved into something else. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
I dropped up. Exactly.
So we're just at this point in the stage, in other words, of time. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Much. If you use human beings as an argument for intelligent design, it took him a long fucking time to make us.
Yeah.
Well, unless now has always existed.
But we already that's making a massive assumption. But
yeah, but I'm just saying that's still a possibility. You can't just throw it out.
Okay. The only thing is we can find evidence to disprove that. That we can look for and find and perform the experiments and all that kind of jazz to verify that theory. So if you have, say, okay, it's always been the way it's always been, but if we have information and data that contradicts that, and it contradicts it the whole way, then at what point do you just go, okay, maybe everything wasn't always the way it is?
It's just that I'm not so sure you do, because when you think about it, notice here, like you'll hear people talk about the chicken and egg problem. You ever hear that?
Yes, it's a
right.
paradox.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah, but what if the chicken and the egg was at the same time always?
Technically, since chicken comes from egg.
What I'm saying is, if the chicken and egg existed all the time, then that paradox couldn't exist, could it?
No, because that's the thing is you're throwing, when you say chicken or egg and then you say, well, fuck it, what about both of them?
No, hold on. Do you understand that point?
That's a paradox too, though.
How? If the chicken and egg existed all the time, there wouldn't be no chicken and egg paradox.
Then here's the whole thing. At what point do they not exist?
That's what I'm saying. I said they existed all the time. What if they existed all the time?
How would you know?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying what I'm doing is
yes,
I'm raising a question. In other words, there's a chicken and egg dilemma that nobody can figure out. And what I'm throwing out there is a suggestion.
That's called a paradox.
What if the chicken and egg paradox, okay? What if the chicken and egg always existed?
You're still creating a paradox.
No, I'm not, because the chicken and egg has always existed. There is no paradox.
I know that's still a paradox, because you have no way of determining whether or not that statement is true.
Dude, I'm just dude, I'm talking possibility.
I know, but that's why your possibility is a paradox.
Right. Because at the same time, if they both existed, which one, where'd they come from?
Right, that's my
one
point.
One had to come from the other, because we can tell, we can observe that one comes from the other. So we know that the egg is laid and then the chicken comes. So what came first? Well, from our perspective, it's definitely the chicken, but who laid, or the egg, but who laid it's the same. If they were both here, how'd they get here? It's still a paradox.
Dinosaurs.
Right, but what you're saying is you live in a reality that has paradoxes.
No, you're introducing a paradox.
So listen, in your cosmology of the Big Bang and evolution, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Technically speaking, the egg came first because chickens evolved from dinosaurs, and dinosaurs already laid eggs. So technically speaking, the egg came first, and it was a dinosaur egg, but then the dinosaurs evolved into chicken.
Okay, so at some point, an egg didn't need a dinosaur to lay it, and then all of a sudden,
still needs a dinosaur.
It started needed dinosaur. But if the egg came first before the dinosaur, how did the egg get there?
I bet you if I came up behind Slick at a red light and it turned green, we'd be sitting there, because he wouldn't know whether or not green actually meant go.
Right, but see, we're just having a conversation. You don't have to take it off.
I know, but
do you understand those? These are legitimate questions that I'm asking.
I'm kind of poking a little bit of innocent fun at you, man. You're always,
I hear you,
always on the other side.
Well, the reason I get a little agitated, because most of the time it's not fun. It's just
I'm just fucking with you. With me, you recognize me now. So if I'm poking fun at you, I'm not really meaning it.
Right. What I'm saying is, just understand me and my position, because I'm not used to that. People aren't usually poking fun when they did what you just did. That's just when
like they start. Just like the whole bitch slap question.
They start getting triggered.
It's just like my whole bitch slap question that I asked you.
Right, but I'm just saying, most of the times people start getting triggered when I ask these questions. So that's why you have to forgive me for being on guard. Because that's
not necessarily the question.
If the egg came first, how is it that the egg didn't need the dinosaur, but once that egg came, all of a sudden the dinosaur needed a dinosaur? So something had to happen in the process to go from an egg not needing a dinosaur to needing a dinosaur. And my question would be, what was that process?
The egg still needs a dinosaur.
I know, but how did the egg get there first without the dinosaur?
We'll take it all the way back to the Big Bang. When
No,
there was
just
an
answer that
explosion.
question. How? I just want one answer to the question. How did the egg come without the dinosaur?
It didn't.
Manually.
You understand my question? See, so that's what makes it hard to accept
Manual
that
simulation?
theory, because when you ask that question, nobody can answer it.
Because it's not an answerable question.
Exactly. So that's why I mean. So people that take the position of Big Bang and evolution, I look at it and go, man, there's a
your
lot
question,
of
your specific question is technically unanswerable.
Right.
Because it's what's called a nonsensical question.
Right, but because of that, because the question is so nonsensical, that's why I couldn't buy. I have a hard time understanding the Big Bang evolution theory, because we get to these questions that are unanswerable.
Big Bang and evolution are two different things.
I know. I'm just mentioning them both at the same time. That's
Well,
all.
but Slick is mentioning them both because they go hand in hand in the whole argument, God versus evolution, right? But at the same time, some people believe that maybe God was the Big Bang, you know? I don't know.
Right. See, that's what I'm saying. There's so many possibilities for somebody to say, well, this is what happened and this didn't happen. How can you do that when there's so many unanswered questions? That's the only thing.
You observe history. So we dig it up, we see organisms change. We can see evolution. That's not something that's under question anymore. We've seen it.
Okay, then show me the egg. Show me how that egg came without needing a dinosaur, and then all of a sudden it did.
It's still a nonsensical question, no matter how many times you repeat it.
Right, but just because you say the question is nonsensical, that doesn't mean it is. That's just what you're saying. My question may be very perfectly valid.
But that's the point. Is it's not valid because you're talking about something poofing into existence, the egg, or you're questioning of whether or not the egg came first. That's not, and you keep on the same diatribe. We're explaining to you, it's like, look, it's not a matter of the chicken before the egg. It's a matter of here's a chicken. Before that was something else. Before that was something else, and in a progression of from one organism 4 billion years ago, maybe.
So why didn't it keep on that track? Why at some point it stopped and got to a point where the chicken needed the egg? It didn't need it before. What happened in evolution to come up with this need?
You see, that's the thing. DNA and life in general, it's a competitive situation. So as organisms grow, somehow the DNA learns. There's a survival mechanism in everybody and everything, and it tries to be better. So at some point, DNA split off and gave us opposable thumbs, which it turns out was the best thing that it could have done. So with opposable thumbs, that little tiny digit, we are now dominating the planet. However,
based
it's
on
all
what
about
you're saying,
DNA trying to become better and survive. It's survival. That's all it is.
So
That's
basically,
literally all
what
it
you're
is.
saying, it sounds like you're saying DNA has some type of intelligence.
I knew you were going to go there. No, man, no.
I'm just saying.
He's not saying it's conscious. He's not. It's not being literal.
You're talking about
It's kind of
DNA.
like a computer program. While it's logic and it follows a certain path, it doesn't have the ability to deviate from that.
Okay,
Once you set a program in place, the functions will run exactly as they were told to run. And that's the DNA. It has a survival, and that survival is built into the DNA, not without any thought. It's mostly accidental, and some of it is wrong. Some of it gets it way wrong.
Okay, so along the chain, the egg came along the evolution chain. Why would the egg go from just being able to reproduce itself to being able to?
First of all, eggs are not able to reproduce by themselves.
I know. Well, you never let me finish. I would have finished and I would have made my point, but you won't let me. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Secondly, the problem with your question is you say constantly that the egg needs a chicken or the chicken needs the egg. The egg doesn't need a chicken, first of all, because the eggs were produced by dinosaurs before that. And I would assume that at the same time there were other life forms that also produced eggs. So the egg doesn't need a dinosaur. It doesn't need a chicken. The egg is just a reproduction mechanism that can be used by a whole variety of creatures.
So if that was the case,
it doesn't need a dinosaur and it doesn't need a chicken.
Okay, so if that was the case right now, we would just have eggs just appearing by themselves.
No, and that's why that's again why your question was nonsensical.
Well,
By the way,
your whole evolution thing makes no sense because at one
no,
point along
who's
your
you?
chain, hold on, guys, let me finish. I let you talk. Now, at some point along your chain, the egg came. Now, all of a sudden, it has to be laid. My point is, at some point in time, you're telling me that the DNA went from producing itself to now all of a sudden needing a mother to produce it.
That made no sense whatsoever.
Listen,
what you just said.
Sense to anybody else?
I understand what he's trying to say.
Okay,
there are actually insects on the planet identical on the surface as well as under the earth where there's no light. The insects that don't receive light have no pigment and they're blind. So they have longer antenna though. So you see DNA adapts to its environment. There's sun radiation, which causes deviations in DNA chain strands, whatever. So it's not that these things need this or that. It has evolved the way that it has evolved based on the survival and the changes in the DNA that have created different strains of things. That's why there's different types of species of of birds, right?
So what? Yeah, I get your point, but my question is, what would happen with survival that an egg would all of a sudden evolve itself into?
No one is saying that it did.
Have to do with survival?
Well, Slick, the egg is one of these things that was a product of the evolution. So eventually, the mechanism, and if you think about it, all mammals really have this sort of sac situation, either an egg or a sac of some sort, which contains all the nutrients for life. It just seems likely to me that in order to bring new life into existence, you have to have some form of fuel, some form of nutrients, and that's all that eggs are. So at some point in the evolution, it was decided by the DNA, however that works, to become, this is how we're gonna lay this egg and provide enough nutrients for that egg to become a complete thing, whatever I am. That's how the egg started.
So the egg started without these nutrients in this sac.
No one is saying that.
No, not at all.
It's just I don't want to continue beating this upside the head because I'm not getting anywhere with it. And I don't want to keep.
You don't want to crack any more eggs.
I'm just saying the whole. I just can't make any sense out of it because when I think about it and I use a thought process like a thought experiment, I get stuck because I can't understand how this process works. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I just don't think you're going back far enough, dude. Really, I just don't think you're going back far enough.
Technically speaking, the evolutionary process is a hard thing to imagine, and I do have an interesting background compared to other guys here, most likely because I used to be young Earth creationist at some point, like for a half a year or a year. I quickly came out of that, first of all, and then I have slowly drifted towards accepting Big Bang and evolution and the whole freaking deal. But
you believe in God, don't you? Don't you believe in God?
Yeah.
Where does God? Okay, so compared to what these guys are saying, there's no such thing as God.
Yeah, I believe in.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah.
Amen. So, Lori, what do you think about these guys that are saying there's no such thing as God? What is your argument to that?
They are pagans and they will burn in hell.
Right. So do you understand how different people have different views of things? Lori just explained that he has a background in evolution and all that. So he's saying he understands it just like you guys, but he believes in God and you don't. Why?
Well, no, he just said he had a background in young Earth creationist.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't like to say that because I was in that for a year or half, but yeah, technically speaking, yes, I did think that at some point.
Because Lori has an affinity for magic mushrooms.
Well, I did tell you that you're going to hell, so that's a fair shot.
Yay!
But do you understand my point? How different people have different views, but we're supposed to all have the same knowledge. That's what my point is. It's something is not.
Yeah, but perspective doesn't have to see reality and understand it to be wrong, or the right. Reality, like we had this discussion over in that comment stream the other day. Reality is reality. Perception isn't reality. Perception is how you receive it and process it. But reality is what it is. Okay, oxygen is an element that we need to breathe. Now, whether or not we like it, that's the truth. It's our perception of it doesn't matter. It's necessary for life. That is what I call reality. That's not a truth, and we don't own that. That's just the way it is. But you think maybe you don't like the smell of, like, here's one, for example. Carbon monoxide is bad for you, but I love the smell of car exhaust. Okay. So from my perspective, car exhaust is great. Does that mean it is? No. So reality is carbon monoxide is poisonous and deadly. And on the other end, I don't mind smelling a car drive by that maybe has an exhaust leak or something, you know? So reality and perception don't have to match up, but reality is always what it is. It's just is. A fact is a fact. Reality is reality. Perception has no bearing on either of those things.
Okay, so based on what you just said, is it possible that intelligent design is the real thing and the Big Bang thing is just a myth? Is that possible too?
I don't believe it is possible, no.
No, but I'm not asking you what you believe because we just ruled out perception. We're talking about based on no perception like you just talked about. Based on that, is it possible that you're wrong and intelligent design is correct?
Well, as I am a human being, then you know that it's possible that I could be wrong.
That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
Of course, I am Shane Rushton, so probably not.
But you understand my point there? Just because somebody...
God damn it, Slick, one of these times I'm going to get you to laugh, dude.
Well, man, I'm telling you, I laugh with the best of them. You don't never want to get me started with that.
With me, not at me.
No, I'm just saying, even with you, dude, I'm a cut up. You don't even want to get me, but I'm only usually one or the other. I don't usually mix it together.
Okay.
Yeah. But you understand my point. See, if you say that reality just is, but you say, well, it's easier for me to accept a Big Bang than a God. Well, you're just talking about your perception. You could be just totally wrong, and all of your thoughts about the eggs, the chicken, and evolution could be a crop. You don't know that.
Right. And so at this point, the evidence points to intelligent design probably not like
with what the evidence points to.
What else do I have?
Listen, maybe it's your perception of the evidence points to.
Nah, it's evidence, man.
How do you know it's not perception of evidence?
Because I didn't perceive it. I just read it.
But you're the one talking, right? You are the one reading it. So how do you know it's not your perception?
Well, because words put together with a meaning and a definition create a story that all of us can read and get the same conclusion from.
So there's no way that you could be perceiving it, and anybody that read what you read is going to get the same reality.
It just depends on what we're reading. Like, for example, they were able to put a telescope up and actually watch the universe expand. That isn't something that I don't think anybody would misunderstand that.
Okay, but they got a Bible book that says that the earth was created in 6 days by God. They got that book too.
But were they there?
Who wrote that book?
But I'm just saying, well, who wrote your book?
But that's the thing. See, like the difference between that book and what I'm describing is that I can go to Goldendale, Washington, where there's an observatory, and I can look through the same telescope that people look through, right, and see the same thing they saw. That's not perception. That's just observation.
Okay, but here's another thing for you. If God is real, he's invisible. So you can't see him through no observatory. So how can you count him out?
That's an oxymoron.
No, you understand? But Shane, do you understand that question?
Yeah, but how can you sit there and say God is invisible? Maybe he's clearly visible.
You said that you can go to an observatory and observe that reality that you think is real. My point is, if God is real, it's not something that you could ever see in anywhere because it would be invisible. So how could you rule it out? Hold on. How could you rule God out if it's invisible?
That's
invisible.
You understand that question?
Yeah. But you're making a claim that God is invisible.
So you can't rule God out based on that, right?
I can.
So in other words,
God is so powerful and so magnificent. Why would he be invisible?
Shane, God wouldn't have any evidence. So when you say that you go by the evidence,
if
God is not comprised of evidence, how can you say you follow the evidence?
How do you, whoa. How do you know that God is not comprised of evidence?
I said, if God is invisible, there would be no evidence for it.
Then how do you know God would be there if there was no evidence.
That's my point. How do you know he's not there?
That's saying how do you know he's not is the same, and how do you know he is? So you have to go off the basis of, okay, he probably isn't there because we don't have any evidence. And saying it's an invisible.
Wait a minute, but you're talking about God who wouldn't be based on evidence. How do you base evidence on something that's not based on evidence?
You're making an assumption.
How about I'm just listen. All I'm doing is raising a question. If
you do that a lot.
Listen, if something is not based on evidence, then how can you say it doesn't exist based on evidence?
Okay, here's what I'm saying, and we're gonna talk about evidence.
Okay.
If I look into the sky like we're talking about, right? Everything is visible through a telescope. However, there are a few things, and I'll admit, that aren't visible through the naked eye. But we can find those things at different frequency, like infrared, for example. Okay. There's never been something in the universe that we couldn't necessarily see. And when we couldn't see something, it was a black hole, or what they call a black hole, because light couldn't get around it or through it, so we couldn't see past it. It just looked like a black spot in the night sky. Everything we know about objects that are solid tells us that if they're solid and not transparent, light cannot penetrate through it. So you either are going to see a silhouette or you're going to see an object. Since nothing that we can see is God, everything out there is tangible and visible, then we have to assume that everything is visible and that God is the only thing in the known universe that is invisible is God. And yet he created it. So that's why I can eliminate God, because if he really was, he would be visible.
Okay, so you're trying to tell me that if there was a God, he would be that you said he has to be.
Right.
Right. Now, do you know how bizarre that sounds?
You just did the same thing.
Yeah, it's a common thing with people. We do that for sure. And I don't really know God, so you're right. But listen, here's what I'm saying. Like, I take that into account, and then I say, God is this intelligent creator of everything, right?
Right.
And he wants mankind to love him and worship him. So his answer to that is to send somebody in a time where there were no cameras or any way to validate it, in a very superstitious period of our human existence, probably the worst part of humanity. And in all of that, he sends the guy, when instead he could simply cut open the sky right now today, say, hey, everybody, here I am. And we would go, well, fuck, I guess we were wrong. There he is. He could do that. He wouldn't even have to convince us to love him through killing his son. He could just kill himself. And why wouldn't, if you were intelligent and you wanted all of mankind to love you, the easiest way to do it would be to present yourself to mankind and say, I'm God.
Your point. Okay, I got your point. Can I respond to that? That story is a myth. There's no such thing as a person that came down to die for anybody's sins. That's just a crock.
Okay. I agree.
So my point is, so now based on that being a crock, now you got to rephrase your story.
Well, the first part of my story is I can't find my fucking wine glass, and now I'm pissed.
Right. So you see what I'm saying? So you just said that logically a God wouldn't send his son down, and I'm telling you that didn't happen. That's just a crock. So now do you accept God?
No.
So why is that a crock, but the God part isn't?
Yeah, I want to know. I want to dive into that a little deeper, Slick.
Because what I'm trying to tell you is that the Jesus Christ thing, being born, that's just a myth. That's just something religion created. That's not real.
That's the okay, fine. So what's God then?
No, I'm just saying, if God would be the designed, the universe is what I'm talking about. I'm only taking out that story that you just threw in there because I'm telling you that that's a crock. That's just something from history. If you look in history deep enough, that was just a myth that people used about the sun and the moon and the stars. What they did was they personified the sun, moon, and stars. And some religion came along and personified the sun and the sky as a person. That's all that is. That's just a story.
Are you familiar with what the oldest book?
No. That's not. You can be doubtful about the Bible and God, but that's not what.
That's a story, Lori. You might want to do a little research, Lori. That's a story.
I have done my research, and I am open to pretty much every bloody atheistic argument there is, but No, the Jesus myth theory, it isn't credible.
Okay,
Sorry.
you can
You
say
need to
that
do
if you want to, but have you researched it? Have you researched all of
Have I
the
researched it?
cultures? Yes.
Have I researched it? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how many other cultures had a son of God?
Greeks, the Romans, the Japanese, the Chinese,
The
American
Egyptians was
Indians,
Osiris, who continue to come back to life.
But
Aztecs.
but Lori, all of the other ones were myths, weren't they?
That's a stupid line of questioning, because we can actually go through this whole. There are.
Lori, just answer the
Can I
question.
please talk? Can I please talk? We
Okay,
can
well,
go
then-
through that whole. Oh yeah, Jesus was just a myth theory. But first of all, most academics actually believe that Jesus was a historical person, and I'm not talking as about this currently as a believer and as someone who has a hole to dig in the ground. But as someone who has studied theology, I have a BA in theology, and I know a bit about the academic field and the scholars who study in academic fields, the Bible. They
I can
are
back you up. I've read that stuff too.
atheists. And the academic current status is that most people do not give credence to the mythical Jesus story. That doesn't mean it has to be wrong, but you have to acknowledge that most academics do not take it seriously, and they take Jesus as a historical person. Now you can leave some room for the myth theory, but you have to at least acknowledge that it's not the strongest candidate out there at the moment, academically speaking. Now,
What
secondly,
about Osiris?
I have looked into these, like Osiris and most of the things that get thrown out. And the similarities, they are either not there if you look into it. So it ends up being the flat Earth story all over again. When you study it, it just falls apart. There is no similarity. There are no sources. One guy came up with the idea and he said there are these similarities, but they do not end up being the case. Or then Christianity and the Jesus story was first, and the other story got influenced by Christianity. So no, I've looked into it and it's bullshit. So I'm open to challenges of Christianity, but please, when you challenge my religion, come up with something intelligent.
Here you go.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, Lord, no, it didn't come up after. Those stories came up first. If you go by history,
okay,
all of those other stories preceded Christianity.
Okay, which stories are you talking
about? All of them.
All of them.
Said all of them. Pick one.
I need you to bring up examples then.
Just pick one. Whether it's Egyptian, whether it's Rome, all of them. They were Christianity was basically came around in 0 BC. Or AD at that point. All of those other ones had it like way before that.
Yeah, but see, my stance doesn't stand or fall on whether there were religions before that. What my stance might stand or die, if we got a person who was born, was son of God, and was crucified, and all those other things, and they are not there. Someone having just a vague religion that has some vague similarities, that doesn't, first of all, debunk my my religion in any way. And secondly, I don't have a problem admitting that there are some similarities in the mythological structures of, for example, ancient Egypt. But see, actual serious Christians like C.S. Lewis already admitted that. C.S. Lewis looked into the other religions, and he basically hated Christianity. He was a devout atheist, and he loved all those ancient Norse mythologies and so on, and he studied those. And so when he converted to Christianity because of Tolkien's influence and so on, he already knew the kind of similarities that there are. So, for example, Tolkien's point of view would be, or Lewis's point of view would be, oh, if something is true, it's just true in many places. And I know that's hard to get and that's hard to explain, but there are great credible ways, first of all, to solve this problem. And secondly, there are no stories that are too similar. So you're complete bullshit.
But based on what you're saying, Lori, then everybody should have this knowledge. It wouldn't be just a few historians. This would be everywhere.
Well, that's what they call the Bible, right?
Right, but the Bible is not a historical book. It's a religious.
It actually, the Bible actually has a remarkable amount of history in it.
But it's not it's not recognized as a history book.
Well, it's not considered a history book, but it has a tremendous amount of history in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of literature has a lot of history in it. But
verifiable history.
Okay, well, what verifiable history is in there?
The city of Nineveh? No, not Nineveh. The other one they uncovered. Which one did they uncover, Laurie?
I'm not sure about that, especially, but there are.
The Bible tells a story about a city that they couldn't find, so people were in question about it, and then they ended up discovering the city.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Are you saying that the things happened in the Bible are real historically?
When you take away the God part of it, a lot of the history in there, yeah.
Okay, so you say they added a God part into this history is what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that when they're not talking about Jesus or whatever, if they're just talking about the city, like wars and battles, that kind of stuff.
It's akin to how Spider-Man really goes into New York City and the buildings that are there really exist.
Yeah, and again, these
have both real and fake in the same literature.
Ken, that's a fantastic analogy. I never thought of it that way. Thank you.
Stances like these are also made by people who don't have a vested interest. For example, I looked at a 24-hour course on Egyptian history, and a brilliant course, by the way. And the guy basically gave some credence to the story of Joseph and Exodus and so on. See, many people have laid doubt on that and said that there is no evidence that they ever were in Egypt and so on and so forth. But this guy said, and he was not religious in any way, but just as an academic study of it.
Laurie, I want to say something. I want to bring something up. Yep. The Bible has a passage in it where I think it's probably the New Testament where it says God is the same today, yesterday, and forever.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about that. The oldest book in the Bible, I believe, is Job.
Yep.
The story of a man who was completely devout to God in every way you could imagine. Like, as far as being a Christian, he was what we would consider perfection in God's eyes. But between them, Satan said, I can trip him up. And God said, okay, go ahead and try. And he gave Job to Satan, essentially, to take everything away from him. And he took everything from Job. Now, of course, the story ends with Job getting all of that back plus, because he never turned his back on God. But God never does that again in the Bible. Instead, if you go through some of the other books, like, say, take Leviticus, for example. Leviticus will take you through endless, unbelievable steps in order to please God that you just can't be done. Mankind cannot do it, period. It's just too it's ludicrous, right? So after you figure that out, like, God has a very strict set of rules in the Old Testament, and if you don't follow them, you're going to die. Now, fast forward to Jesus' time, he changes his mind because after Jesus, God loves everybody, and he would never do any of that to you. There's two aspects of God in the Bible clearly presented in each testament. Now, I'll give you that Hebrews or Jewish people don't really consider the New Testament as part of the Bible. They're pretty much canon people. But overall, God changes. He morphs from a very angry, jealous God to a very benevolent God.
That is a very good question. And I try to approach questions like this by not getting triggered, because I want to leave always the door open to, an open conversation. One of the basic normal ways to answer that would be that the Bible gives a progressive narrative, and so God's nature doesn't change, but then the picture that we get about God from the Bible changes. But if I continue from that in a different way, it is clear that the Bible does have, if you compare different books together, they give a bit of a different sort of picture from God, first of all. And secondly, you get this sort of progressive narrative narrative maybe going on, and there are some tensions. So the Bible is not an easy book to contend with if you want to remain just, oh, it's just that is as it is written and we don't need to interpret it and so on. So there are tensions like that.
So my only contention in the whole argument is, if God was in fact the intelligent designer as well as the omnipotent and the omnipresent, then the book that represents him has a lot of fallacies in it, or not fallacies, a lot of I guess mistakes and a lot of errors in perception, if you will. So it's hard to take, and we're only talking about one book essentially, so I get that, but it's hard to take the Christian Bible and present that as evidence for God in any way, or even a manual, because it does differ so greatly from the Old Testament. And you could certainly assert, like you have, that it is a progression of God maybe over the decades. But remember, the Bible in its from front to back isn't a chronological book reference, right? Because Job is somewhere in the middle, but it's the oldest book. The canon is the first 5 that scholars believed were the main portion of the Bible. So what, Genesis through whatever, what is it? I can't remember the word, denominations, I guess.
Leviticus, Deuteronomy.
Okay, so the canon is one section of the Bible. The middle section with all the prophets, that's kind of a conglomeration of different eras. Even the New Testament, mostly written by Paul, essentially, and some by John, right? Some of that, and Luke and Mark, but mostly Paul, or Saul, as you might call him.
Yep.
Most of that's written by him, so that's that perspective, particularly all the letters to the churches. But if you look at all of those are not, it's not chronological like any fiction novel, most fiction novels, where you have a beginning, the middle, and then the end. The Bible jumps between historic periods quite often. So it's not necessarily a progression, although you could have put the books together that way, you can see a progression, but it's not an actual real-time progression.
I would actually argue against that, because even if we don't assume that there is any kind of God behind that, you would expect the books kind of develop a certain kind of theme throughout history. So you would see, in my opinion, you would see some kind of progression, even if we don't assume that God is behind any of it. As to your point, because I think there's a more important question here behind that. The typical view is that the Bible is written as a historical book, so it's a book that man wrote, but God inspired. Now, basically, what I got from your question, there was a theme that, okay, but why doesn't God that wants to reveal himself, why doesn't he just give us a perfect book? Like, for example, the Muslims believe that the Quran just came out as it is, and it's the perfect 100% holy word of God. And why does then God choose to give us a faulty book that's written in history? And that's a good question, I have to admit.
Thank you. I mean, it just to me says, okay, he doesn't really want us to know him. He wants us to. Bottom line is, I can't speak for anybody else, and it's particularly not an omnipotent person, because I'm not omnipotent. But like, essentially, God is up there in the heavens, if he exists, and he's literally hiding from us and hoping that we figure it out. So the idea of an intelligent being who absolutely is supposed to know us would know better. We're never going to figure it out. We're assholes left to our own devices. And what makes any of us think that God is going to let us figure it out on our own, when human beings are not maybe as an individual, but as a whole, we are destructive to each other. We can't even get along in my area. Like, in Seattle, you can't even talk to strangers, but in my country, you can't even get along with your neighbors to the south, right? So, like, how does God expect us to figure it out when it seems like as we progress, we just get more and more at each other's throats? I just don't buy it.
But Shane, couldn't that be a problem of the system itself that's causing it?
That's the point. Wouldn't God know and understand us enough to know that we need that revelation instead of, and of course, there is a book in the Bible called Revelation where it's revealed, but in that book, God is revealing himself at the point in time where he's decided to take everything. So we don't have an opportunity at that point to really know him. So why would a God who knows that we are susceptible, left alone to our own devices, a Lord of the Flies type of mentality, only mitigated slightly by some of our intelligent conversations and some people's ability to reason, but yet at the same time, mob mentality always wins. If we're left to our own devices and we never truly know if God is there, we're going to destroy ourselves, and he's left us here to do that.
Well, what would you rather be? Would you rather be a person of free will, or would you rather be a robot?
If I knew God existed as he was, I would use my free will, and I would learn.
No, hold on. I just want to answer the question. Okay. If you had a choice of as an agent of free will or a robot, which would you rather be?
Can I ask a clarifying question before I answer you?
Sure, go ahead.
Why is the other option robot?
Because what you're saying is, how can a God let this happen or let that happen? If God was going to be in control of everything and make sure that none of these things happen that you're talking about, then you wouldn't have free will. It would be him pulling all the strings. So that's why I'm asking you, which would you rather have? Would you rather be your own person, or would you have strings pulled on you?
No, that's what I was afraid of, because those aren't the two options. But if I had to choose only those two, free will. But I will say this. In the scenario that I'm describing where God reveals himself, I'm not saying he comes down and says, you need to follow me. He's just saying, hey, Shane, I'm real. Carry on. At that point, I'm going to be like, all right, I understand you're real now. What do I have to do to get to know you? And that's it. And I would choose my free will to learn about something that was real, which I try to do every day. But God hasn't presented himself, and instead he's left us here to our own devices to sort of, quote unquote, figure it out.
Well, what if it's
not robotic? It's not robotic to know he exists and to worship because you know he exists.
Oh gosh, Shane, you're long-winded. Okay, so what I'm saying is that what if based on what you just said, instead of him showing himself to you, what if it's more fun for you to find him?
More fun to find him, but with the penalty being burning in hell forever, that's kind of a.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about one scenario. We're just talking about one scenario. Either him show himself to you, or is it more fun for you to find him?
Well,
I'm always going to go with, I prefer to have informed consent. Basically, you tell me the rules, tell me who you are, and then after that, I can make the decision.
Okay, well, don't you? Okay, well, hold on. Don't you have rules? Don't you have rules built inside of you?
No.
I'm going to die, Slick, if it's up to you, because
I know, but don't you have rules? Don't you have rules? Guys, hold on. I'll let you guys go really long-winded, and I'm real concise.
I was still talking when you stepped on me.
So now, don't you have rules built inside of you? Don't you know when you do something wrong? You mean to tell me you don't know that?
They seem to be societal more than written on your soul.
I'm talking about you personally, just you personally. Don't you know?
They seem to be societal. Yeah, my parents told me not to hit my brother. Basically,
you don't know what's inside. Okay, so what you're telling me is that you can't figure out from what. Come on, guys, you guys get the monologue. I'm really short. You guys monologue. I'm really short, so give me a break. So
I was still talking.
I'm asking you, but guys, come on. It's just real quick. What I'm saying is that
you don't mind when people step on you, or you mind when people step on you?
Oh man, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So basically, I find it to be societal because there are cultures out there who believe that eating their loved ones is okay. There's headhunter tribes. There's nothing that's written on our souls per se. It is all societal. With beyond a certain thing, if you protect your family, that seems pretty universal.
And you know what? And Slick, I have been pretty.
So am I going to get a turn here, or are you guys just going to go back and forth between each other?
I just wanted to say to you that your question, yes,
you're going to set of rules. Hold on, Shane, you're going to lose me because I was trying to answer you. Then Ken stepped in and he said, now I want to answer that. Now you're stepping in again, so I'm going to have 3 different things to answer by the time I get a chance to speak. So can I get in there somewhere before you guys? Because you're long-winded, guy, really. I'm real concise. Ken, what I'm asking you is, don't you know inside yourself individually the difference between right and wrong?
I think I answered that. That's why I'm a little bit.
No, you gave me this whole long monologue. I just asked you a simple question. You started going off into society. I said you personally.
Thing, it is not something that I know internally.
Okay, why don't you mean to tell? So hold on. So what you mean to tell me is that you think that it's okay to kill someone?
No, because society has told me, my family, my society has told me what I'm allowed to do. Spartans thought it was okay to kill people.
Okay, so if it wasn't for society, you wouldn't have a clue. Is that what you're telling me?
Within reason. It seems like the things that are written on our skull, as you would put it, is you protect family and tribe. That is the inherent.
So you wouldn't, in other words, you wouldn't feel it was wrong to kill somebody. That wouldn't bother you inside, and if society didn't tell you that.
How would I know?
Because I mean, it just seems like that's instinctive.
Looking at past cultures, you will find out that past cultures have found it completely acceptable to kill people.
Right, but you keep talking about cultures. I'm talking about you.
Yes, me. I am a product of my culture.
Yeah, Slick, that's a pretty easy line to draw. I don't know why you can't draw it right now.
Okay, so only thing I'm saying, we're just raising question. So isn't it possible that God made a people of all free will, and if some of that culture of people decide it's okay to kill, why are you going to blame God for that?
Blame God for what?
Because people kill because they decide to get culturally. You keep blaming society. So what I'm saying is that why are you blaming God for what society does?
That's not what I'm blaming him.
Nobody in this conversation is blaming God for that.
Hard.
Nobody even said that.
Shane said that it's hard to accept a God that would allow all of these things, but people have free will. And Ken is saying, well, societal culture is saying it's okay to kill. So you can't blame God for what societal culture does.
That is a lot of oversimplification.
Well, it's just that I'm trying to talk to both of you at once. I'm trying to cover Ken's point and yours at the same time.
Well, okay, but you're asking Ken if there's a set of rules on a person, like morals, initially. And essentially, no, is what he's saying. It depends on your culture. So, yes, but, and there's always a caveat, depends on your culture. So if your culture thinks that it's okay to kill, like if you have xenophobia, it's okay to kill people coming into your city that you don't know because they're a threat, which, by the way, he's correct. This is the one thing that's probably written on our soul. It's called survival, and it's called the fight or flight response. We would kill somebody if we felt threatened or if we thought they were threatening our family, and none of us would feel bad about that.
But we're not talking about that, Shane. I'm not talking about that.
That's what Ken was talking about.
I'm talking about this. I know, but when I'm talking about it,
murder, and nobody here is going to say that that's okay because this society.
Okay, so hold on. So what I'm saying is the reason you don't murder because you know instinctively inside.